Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of Committee of the Whole into order. I hope that you all had a good Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to start off with our roll call. I'll call out your district number, and if you would respond with your name, please. District 1.
Prout.
District 2.
McDonald.
District 3.
Flower.
District 4.
Deal.
District 5.
Gregory Hemming.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7 is myself, Timothy Hibinsky. District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Dr. Roberts.
And District 11.
Diane LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, folks. You have before you the agenda. Could I have a motion to, oh, yes, Carolyn?
I would like to add one late item, the 2020-2021 tax sale procedure.
All right. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I'd like to add a very short item, both in its title and the time to be devoted to it. Zuri, Z-U-R-I.
Okay. I saw another hand somewhere. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you very much. Committee of the Whole November, please.
Okay. All right. Anything further? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Hemming. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. Let's go on. We've got minutes from our meeting from September the 8th. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Prout. Thank you very much. Any errors or omissions that you noted in those minutes, folks? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. Let's go on in that case to our first item of new business, which is a request for decision for the Nova Scotia Guides Association grant. Deputy Warden, could you read the recommended action for us?
The Committee of the Whole recommends to Council to approve a grant in the amount of $500 from Marketing and Promotion Partnership Program to the Nova Scotia Guides Association to assist with the 100th anniversary celebration taking place at Milford House in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grants Policy.
Could I have a motion? Could I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gunn. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Sheridan.
Just an observation. Back in September at Committee of the Whole, we have the exact current balance that we have on this one. So I'm thinking the balance is off by about $9,500.
Okay, is Holly there?
Hey, Carolyn.
So can we be certain that the number that we have here as the total remaining in that fund is accurate from the last Committee of the Whole?
And when you get to the last RFD will be, they thought that these motions were going to go on the last Committee of the Whole. So when you get to the fourth RFD, which is the newest one, that should have the current running balance.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. Councillor LeBlanc?
But there's a but to that. I think it's still off by a little.
Yeah, I think it is still off.
Yeah, it's still off from. I saw exactly what Wendy saw. But I think it needs to be rectified because it's still off, no matter how you do the math.
I think the ending balance should be about 13,000 and they've got about 17 as ending. I think it's not still off about 4,000, but that's just a quick calculation. That could be wrong.
Well, perhaps what we can do is, John?
Yeah, I'll ask Holly to give an update amount. She's not on the Zoom right now, but we'll
Holly's on the
She
Zoom.
is actually.
I'm here.
None of us.
Oh, sorry, Holly.
No, I'll contact Nancy and see where the error is.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is a request for decision for the Clarence Community Club grant.
The Committee of the Whole recommends to council to approve a grant in the amount of $2,400 from the Community Halls and Centers Assistance Program to the Clarence Community Club to assist with kitchen upgrades, painting floors and walls, and general repairs to the windows and doors in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grant Policy.
Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion on the motion? Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. I was looking at this, and I'm not sure which one it was, but I was looking at one of these grants from one of these groups, and we're just giving them the money. I mean, they're not putting up anything. Is that this one or the other one? Yeah, I think it's this one. This one, it doesn't show that they're actually putting anything up. Now, I realize community halls and all the rest of it have a hard time, but usually I thought they usually put up a little something, if it's nothing else in kind labor. So anyway, I'm just poking that out there, folks.
Now, is there a requirement under the grants program for a financial contribution on behalf of the halls themselves in order to receive such a grant? Because I don't believe there is such a restriction.
Probably not.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Councillor Fowler.
I'd say that that's why there's action coming from the community.
Oh, I couldn't make that out. Wayne, would you try that one again?
I just said due to the maybe that's why there's no funding coming from the community. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still missing some of the words in there. It's cutting in and out.
Anyway,
Okay.
You said it's because of lack of funding that's able to come from the community at this time?
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. Councillor LeBlanc?
And if Mr. Gunn, or
Yes.
if you look on page 19 and you look at 5B,
Page 19, you said.
yeah. In 5B,
Christ, I can't even find page
It
19,
says-
for God's sake.
we did ask for in kind in this particular one. So I'm presuming if they're going to be looking for paint for floor and walls, possibly the $600 would not include somebody painting it, but it would be in kind of be.
You
it's
say
been-
that's page 69, you said, or 19.
No, I said 19 of 67.
Email online.
Okay. And what line was that you were pointing at?
5B. We do ask for in-kind volunteer contributions. And
Okay.
I said, I believe that $600 for paint and floor and walls would be some
Well,
in-kind.
that would be the $2,400, my dear.
That's right. So they've not listed the in-kind.
They haven't listed anything.
No,
So
it's
and
asked.
that's the only point I'm pointing out.
It is asked though, so I was just making that point.
Yeah, but I think that given the nature of the supplies you're wanting to purchase, paint and such, one can safely assume that the Community Hall Association is planning to do the actual renovations themselves. So
That's
that would be
exactly
their,
it.
that would be their in-kind contribution. They simply didn't put it in the form, but they could have.
Mhm.
I do
And this
believe
is-
so.
And this is for the community to clear.
All right. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. And on to the Paradise Historical Society grant application.
A committee of the whole recommends to council to approve a grant in the amount of $4,800 from the Capital Projects Assistance Program, small project matching grants to the Paradise Historical Society to assist with the purchase and installation of heating pumps and chimney repair for the old Paradise School in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grants Policy.
Do I have a seconder for the motion, please? Seconded by Councillor Henning. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Let's go on to Sunset Lane, Hampton. Perhaps Councillor Fowler, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, that's already been care of.
Oh, it's already taken care of?
Yeah.
The issue was resolved.
Yep. that's the
Okay,
one we
all right.
started with.
Thanks very much. In that case, we'll go on to E, agricultural uses of glyphosate. Councillor Prout, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. The note pretty well says it all. I was approached by someone in the community, a fairly large, well, quite large
Jesus Christ.
farming operation, and very concerned, not so much about us banning the aerial spraying, but that I guess the main concern was we were looking, and I said it was just, we had asked John to check in to see about possible lawsuits and so on. And after speaking with him, and as I outlined in the note here, that we discussed a variety of issues, but he still came back to the idea, and rightfully so, that with the Roundup resistant seeds and so on, that glyphosate is the most effective thing they can use to spray on farms for crops like corn, soybeans, and others. I contacted a close family friend who's also running a huge farming operation in Kings County, and he and I discussed it at length. And he gave me information of, the anti-drift method of spraying and so on. I'm concerned that maybe in our haste to stop the spraying of the woodlands and
Monsanto.
sheds, that we have maybe thrown the bath, we may be in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I would like to, if council is agreeable, move that pending input from the agricultural sector, that we as a council take no further actions that would impact the agricultural use of glyphosate in Annapolis County until we have their input. That's, I don't know if there'll be a seconder, but that's what I would like to see done if possible.
Okay. Carolyn, do you have the wording for that motion?
No.
Councillor Prout, could you?
No, I
repeat?
didn't. I can repeat it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I move that pending input from the agricultural sectors, that we as a council take no further actions that would impact the agricultural use of glyphosate in Annapolis County. I'm talking purely about agricultural use, not aerial spraying of any sort.
All right, so that's moved by Councillor Prout, seconder for the motion.
McNeil.
Seconded by Councillor McNeil. Discussion on the motion.
Right here.
I've got Councillor Hemming, Councillor Gunn. Anyone else? Let's start with Councillor Hemming.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm always willing to have a discussion with anyone about any topic. But I'm not sure that holding up the spraying on forestry land to gain additional input is the way to go. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And the idea that on agricultural land, the language that was used, agriculture, it's the most effective means. I think that's so outdated, so wrong-headed, and so absolutely wrong that it's almost comical in some sense. I know there are so many ways to move beyond spraying of toxic chemicals to produce the food that's needed locally, that until we keep pressing these issues and getting some sort of shift in the way we produce food and how we do it, that I'm unwilling to put anything on hold because of the absolute danger of this and the absolute certainty that there are better ways to do this. if our farmers are so far behind, they in a sense need to catch up. They need to be having the debate about no-till agricultural and other sorts of food production that is productive without spraying of toxic chemicals.
Thank you, Councillor Henning. Councillor Gunn?
Thank you. Yeah, when it comes to the glyphosate, you know, whether it's the forest, whether it's on the farm, and what's farming? I mean, forestry can be considered farming. I've had this conversation in different meetings with people about, well, you know, the valley floor, oh, they're clear cutting the valley floor to make room for more farmland. They sure are going to be farmland. Well, that's all we're doing out here is we're clear cutting, we're making farms. Forestry farms, all them much alike, but it's still farming in a sense. So when it comes to glyphosate, whether it's in the forest, whether it's in the farms, they can say, oh, it's a much more controlled spray. In the farming sense, we're spraying directly down on top of it. There's only done when there's no drift. It still gets on the ground. It still leaches through the leachate eventually. And we have to work towards getting rid of this stuff. I mean, a lot of this, the seed producers, they're all the same company. Monsanto owns the seeds. He owns the spray that's all compatible with it, right? This is big business. This is convenience for large farmers. It's profitable. It's at our expense that they're still using it. It's got to stop. So back to that. I'm not willing to really just shut down for some and not for others. If we're going to do this, we do it whole hog. Now, do I think Annapolis County necessarily should be starting a class action suit against Monsanto? No, I'm not really for that, because I think that's should be left to bigger organizations in Annapolis County. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Proud, I think you wanted to respond, and I'll go to Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I didn't want to give the impression that our farmers here are behind in what they're doing. That's not the intention I meant to present, if that's how it was interpreted. Our farmers, as all of us know, are hardworking folks who are trying to produce foods for people of Nova Scotia. We're in a pandemic now. We're thinking about food security. I just think it would behoove us to get a little bit of information or feedback from their point of view, rather than to just go ahead and say, no, we're not willing to listen to what you have to say. I think we can learn a lot from them. I know I did in my discussions with the two farmers that I spoke with and listened to. It doesn't mean down the road, after we have their input, that we can't come to some sort of an agreement, maybe each move a little bit. That's my intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proud. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Could I hear the motion again, and then I have a comment, please?
Would you like me to read it, Carolyn, or do you have it?
It was moved by Councillor Prout, seconded by Councillor McNeil, to recommend, pending input from agricultural sectors, that municipal council take no further actions that would impact the agricultural use of glyphosate in Annapolis County.
Thank you. That's what I thought the motion was. However, my colleagues who spoke before me are talking about the merits of the subject. In my view, all Councillor Proud is asking is that the next time we have a discussion of this subject, we make sure that our citizens are notified so that if they wish, they can enter written opinions or come before a committee of the whole to give their views. To my mind, Councillor Prout's motion is purely procedural and administrative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Further comments or discussion? Councillor Sheridan.
So maybe we could invite them to have a presentation for us, and that way we could, be helpful for our decision. Sometime they could come in on Zoom, I guess.
And that's a good idea. We could request a presentation from a representative of the Agricultural Society. Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
I was thinking the same thing, and I see in the motion somewhat exactly what Councillor Morrison sees, that the intent is that we make sure that we have the agricultural sector giving their point of view and how they use their materials to present to us, and not to make a separate decision that's not been brought in yet, I guess is what I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
I think that we should listen and see what they have to say. I mean, it's not saying that we are going to agree or disagree, but I believe that we should listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And something that occurs to me is when our Forestry Advisory Committee worked to develop their report, and the report, of course, ultimately recommended that we want to move towards the abolition of the spraying of glyphosate in forestry applications in Annapolis County. They met with both environmentalists, but also from people from the industry and people who probably would have supported the use of glyphosate. So there was some engagement and some discussion with people who were on the inside of the industry before the report was issued. We haven't taken a definitive action on the agricultural use of glyphosate as a council. I would read that the motion that we did before as being specific to forestry applications. But it would seem to make sense that if we consulted with people from the industry in order to reach that decision point for forestry, the consulting with people in the industry in terms of agricultural use probably makes sense. I think that because we're talking about the actual spraying of a potential carcinogen directly on food supplies, I think this is an issue that we're going to have to consider carefully and address. But I don't see any reason that we shouldn't be engaging the industry before we reach a decision point on that. Councillor Hemming?
Yeah, I thank you very much. I mean, I opened my comments by saying I'm never opposed to hearing from anyone on these issues. And it's such a broad topic that I think we need to treat this like we did forestry. It's not just getting information from those who in the large scale agricultural section. It's homeowners that spray it on weeds. And it's not just a food issue, it's a water issue. Mm. So I would suggest that in a sense that the county take the initiative and hold a working session, a committee, however we want to structure it, where we really dig into this with farmers, with foresters, with the water keepers, and provincial government to see if we can wrestle with this and structure some sort of way forward where we don't have to file class action lawsuits. Those are always, to me, the last recourse, but oftentimes the only recourse. But I think if we would find some sort of mechanism to open this up to all of council, to a committee, to really dig into it, provide all that input the same way we did with forestry. We brought in 9 to 11 different speakers, from industry to environmentalists to birders to indigenous wisdom holders. That's the sort of collective discussion that we need to have, and that'll help us begin to shape a policy. So that would be my suggestion, is don't do anything right now except think about and announce a community discussion on the spraying of toxic chemicals in Annapolis County.
Thank you, Councillor Hemming. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. So with back to the item, and I listen, dialogue is always good. Listen to these farmers come in, because we want to know their case. But as I pointed out before, they become complacent. They become very used to using this glyphosate. It's practical for them. It's economical. It's all those things that a farmer's looking for. But we can't have it anymore. It's like we can go right down the line, DDT years ago and all the rest of it. They all used it years ago. We'll never replace it. And then along comes glyphosate. People, we, through this whole COVID thing, we've all learned how to adapt to the various situations that have been, presented to us. With this glyphosate, farmers are going to have to learn how to adapt. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy. The forestry sector is going to have to learn how to adapt. It's not going to be easy, but they'll learn. So, and that's what we have to literally push them, prod them in that direction to learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate Councillor Hemming's thoughts. And we did a lot of work on the forestry committee, which made our decisions easier, right? Because of the 2 days of presentations and homework. And I really appreciate those people reaching out to Councillor Prout to say, hey, wait a minute, I hope this doesn't involve us. You know what, I think there should be, I heard Councillor Hemming mention the word committee, and that's what we did with forestry. And this is a really big topic. And I think it's that important that we not only have people representing the company itself that produces these weed inhibitors, I don't know, glyphosate, the farmers, but we also need to hear from groups like CARP and others on this topic. It's a big topic, and I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer. I think it should be done with more homework, and I'll probably support Mr. Prout's motion today because we're not prepared to. I'm not prepared to make a decision on whether or not farmers should use this product in Annapolis County. I think we need to do our homework better. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what I would suggest perhaps as a way forward, we have the motion before us, which needs to be voted on, but what we could do subsequently is put together an ad hoc committee specifically just to develop a mechanism to pull industry experts, people from the organic farming community, people from the conventional farming community in, and decide how we will consult with them. And I would suggest that the purview of that committee should be specifically to figure out what that meeting would look like, and then present perhaps back to council for council next week. That would be a suggestion. But let's, if there's no further discussion of this motion, perhaps we'll put it to the question at this point. Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, even though I'm against it, I'm one of the owners.
Could you repeat that, Councillor Fowler?
Even though it's spraying the eye over the farmers.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Motion's carried. Could I ask for a motion to create an ad hoc committee to develop a mechanism for consultation with the agricultural sector on the issue of the agricultural use of glyphosate? Moved by Councillor Hemming, seconded by the Deputy Warden. Discussion of the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. And I wonder if I could have perhaps three councillors who would like to be in a position to chat about this week with each other and figure out something to present to council next week. And perhaps Councillor Prout and Councillor Hemming and as people who are on opposite sides in this would be good. Could we have another councillor who might be interested in participating?
Are we forgetting the election Saturday?
Yes, but we still do have one more meeting.
Right here.
Thank you, Councillor Gunn. All right, so it doesn't have to be complex and it doesn't have to be completely fleshed out, but just a mechanism to bring who we should be inviting and what that meeting should look like. All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Oh, actually, did we get a mover and a seconder?
You've already, yeah.
Oh, we did get a mover and a seconder. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Right.
What, I don't know what motion you're voting on right now. You've called the question on developing the ad hoc committee, and then and the motion was passed with one nay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that it had already been voted on. My apologies, Karen. All right. Let's move on to our next, which is our temporary borrowing resolution for telecommunications renewal.
Whereas Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act provides municipality of the County of Annapolis, subject to approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, may borrow to expend funds for a capital purpose authorized by statute. And whereas the municipality of the County of Annapolis has adopted a capital budget for this fiscal year as required by Section 65 of the Municipal Government Act, and are so authorized to expand funds for capital purpose as identified in their capital budget, be it therefore resolved that under the authority of Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act, the municipality borrow a sum or sums not exceeding $13 million in total for the purpose set out above, subject to approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, that the sum be borrowed by the issue and sales of debenture of the municipality to such as an amount as the council deems necessary, that the issue of debenture be postponed pursuant to Section 92 of the Municipal Government Act, and that the municipality borrow from time to time a sum or sums not exceeding 13 million in total from any chartered bank or trust company doing business in Nova Scotia, that the sum be borrowed for a period not exceeding 12 months from the date of approval of Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing of this resolution, that the interest payable on the borrowing be paid at a rate to be agreed upon, and that the amount borrowed be repaid from the proceeds of the debenture when sold.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder for the motion, please? Seconded by Councillor Hemming. Discussion on the motion, and just to be sure that everyone understands exactly what this is. So this is the same borrowing resolution that was used in order to provide funding for the development of our internet build. And according to the MGA, that must be renewed annually. It is annually, isn't it, John?
Yes, that's correct. Every 12 months. And so the project's already started. We're already drawing on the project to build it.
Okay, Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. So my question is this, I mean, with the Bell Canada and a lot of people putting in parts of the fiber build to service like the Bear River communities and different places like that, and Eastling's getting out there. Will we, if we don't need the 13 million, will we have to still borrow the 13 million? And where's that extra money going that's not being used in what was our original build? Is that all just going into other places or what? And my biggest question, John, is if we don't necessarily need that 13 million, are we committed to borrowing the 13 million?
John?
It's a budget figure, 13 million. So a budget may be less, maybe a little more. If it's a little more, we would have to come back. Right now, I would say that we're basically on budget. There are a couple of items that the county will be responsible for as it relates to operations and not capital, such as our POP locations and the ongoing operation that and the power grids and the leasing arrangements. We're working on those things. The way this is structured is the approval on borrowing the 13 million is something that you can take to a bank. The province says approve your borrowing. So you can go to a bank and you can draw no more than 13 million as you build your capital building, and you have to pay interest to the bank. You don't have to pay principal. And when you're done the project, now the capital project for under the contract right now is 11.7 million, but we did pay the previous contract approximately $800,000 for the work that they did. So it's all a part of the project. And so when we finalize the project, and let's say the project comes in, let's say the final cost is $12,500. Well, then we would only issue a debenture for $12,500 or $12,500,000 because we didn't need to spend the whole 13 million.
Okay, got it.
That's how it worked.
Yeah.
But the project is meant to be budgeted for these numbers. So I anticipate it'll be spent in full. The object is not to spend any more.
Okay.
All right. Further questions or discussion, folks? Deputy Warden?
Oops, sorry. So I guess the follow-up question from Counselor Gunn, where there is other companies going in and stringing line, is if we have the total 13 million, will it be used in places where it needs to be used? Or is it still calculated to go along with the project that has already been presented?
John?
Because we have a design build contract, we have the flexibility. We anticipated some things might happen. So where Bell is building or anybody else, we're not building there. We may have to, cross in some areas and it might overlap, but the objective is not to build where they are. They're building gigabit service and the citizens of Annapolis County will have it. We're building elsewhere, and every aspect of the project has different prices at different times, depending on what you're doing. We will build as far as we can with the money we have. That's the objective.
Deputy Warden?
Nope.
Nope, good. All right. Further discussion? Councillor Sheridan.
So we're borrowing the same amount that mainland, excuse me, that mainland was going to be borrowing. And we got rid of that contract because it's supposed to be cheaper this way. So are we going further with kilometers with the same 13 million?
John?
Yeah, to explain it better is that we had a budget roughly 18 million. That included money from CTI and the province. Now, we haven't received any money from the province as of yet because we've had to redo the CTI application. They're fully aware. So we anticipate getting that funding. Okay, that's one issue. In the previous contract, to what was being built and being used for the 13 million was simply basically the valley floor and didn't include the CTI portion. We never got to an agreement on the CTI portion with mainland. We were going there, but we never got there. The project for the build as it relates, and so what we did, let me explain a little bit further. Part of the make ready costs was in the budgeted amount of 13 million that mainland was using. If it was 10.8% above what they estimated, then it had to go back to us, basically, the county, to say, how are we going to cover that cost? When we realized it was 2 million more, that was really the impetus for the termination for convenience. Now, Eagle, in comparison, Eagle included the CTI portion of the entire bill. So the valley floor and CTI, and their cost came in 11.7 million. So you see the difference. So we had a problem with being over budget previously. Now we're in budget. Does that help?
That's great. And in regards to the interest rate, do you have any idea what that's going to be? I know interest rates are low. Have you looked into that to find out? Or?
Well, we can take a look at what current calls on the debenture are with the, but until you issue the debenture,
right,
it will be attached at that time, but they have been extremely low.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Anything further, folks? Hearing nothing, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay recorded.
Thank you very much. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Let's proceed now with the Nova Scotia Ground Search and Rescue Wilderness Survival Guide.
I'm not seeing any of those.
That is on page, let's see, between about 38 to 41.
Okay. Let me see that one.
So the letter actually asking for our support is on page 42. And the pricing for the various ad sizes is on page 43. Councillor Robert, the Deputy Warden rather.
So have we supported this before?
Yes.
We've supported this annually for at least 5 years.
Okay. Further discussion on this, folks? So would someone like to make a motion? Would council like to advertise again in this wilderness survival guide? Councillor Henry.
Just to refresh my memory, when I knew we supported it. At what level did we support it over the years? It was
At a half-page color ad.
That's okay. Fine. Okay, well, I would move that we do the same thing. Half-page
I
color
would
ad.
second it.
Okay, moved by Councillor Hemming and seconded by Councillor Gunn to book a half-page color ad for the Nova Scotia Ground Search and Rescue Wilderness Survival Guide. Discussion the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Lawrencetown Community Hall grant request.
The Committee of the Whole recommends to council to approve a grant in the amount of $1,200 from Community Halls and Centers Assistance Program to the Lawrencetown Community Hall Association to assist with maintenance to the exterior of the hall in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grants Policy.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion on the motion. Carolyn?
Yes, Warden. Nancy Chisholm is on the call now, and she's the one who prepares those RFDs. If you have any questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them.
Terrific. Do we have any questions for Nancy? Councillor Hemming.
It's just a very broad question, and just because I cannot remember, but at some place we structured a formula that's based on square footage. And I can't remember what that is. If you're over 2,400 square feet, can someone refresh my memory on the link between the square footage of a community hall and the amount of funds that we normally give?
Nancy?
Yeah, the community grants policy for community halls and centers stipulates in there, if the community hall is over 2,000 square feet, they can apply for up to $2,400. If they are under the 2,000 square feet, they can apply for a maximum of $1,200. And historically, that was before my time when the change was made, so I wouldn't be able to give you any background, but that is how the policy currently reads.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. Further questions? Councillor Sheridan.
So Nancy, what was the actual balance after, if we pass everything today?
So
the ending balance, I guess.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion. I spoke with Holly and I went through the numbers to make sure they were correct. So you were right. If you would have seen all the RFDs that were for September Committee of the Whole, you would have ended up with the 13,000 and some dollar balance. However, the last RFD I wrote with your actual approved numbers to date. So if you approve all the RFDs that are in today, then you will end up with a balance that is listed on the the 19,000, and I will double check. So when you started today, you were left with just over $20,000, and if you approve all the ones today, sorry for the confusion. I should have changed the RFDs. And I'm just double checking the math with a calculator so I don't misdirect you. Okay, so if you approve everything today, you'll be left with $11,829.41.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. Next, we have CARP application to the Federal Climate Action and Awareness. And I believe what they're looking for is an in-kind partnership.
So Katie McLean from CARP is on your call right now.
Hello, Katie.
Zoom.
Katie, would you like to speak? Thank you for joining us. Would you like to speak to this?
Yes. Are you guys able to hear my audio clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, the federal government announced a funding opportunity, which we thought was a little too good to miss. So just to give you some background on the funding program itself, it's the Climate Action and Awareness Fund. And they have 3 different streams for this program. At present, they're accepting requests for proposals for the community-based climate action stream. Previously, there was a funding round that focused on student-based education programs, and there'll be a future intake that focuses on think tanks and academia as their kind of target proponents. And so this particular round of funding has 2 different, I guess, levels you could think of it as that you can request. So for projects that are between 100 and 500,000, project delivery must take place over what's written as 2 years, but what is functionally 1 year because they're counting this fiscal year. And for projects that are between $500,000 and $6 million, they can take place over a period of 5 years. So they need to wrap up, I think it's by the end of fiscal for what would be 2025, 2026. And so the fund itself is meant to support outreach and development and delivery of resources for community-based climate action projects. Some of the types of activities that they provide as examples include workshops, networking, training, virtual platforms, climate awareness activities. And we saw a really great fit to bring a few different partners working in areas connected to climate-based solutions. Nature-based solutions for climate change. And that's where our kind of interest and hope in working with the County of Annapolis comes in. So fairly familiar with the forestry report that was produced by your committee. Within that report, there's a definition provided of climate forestry, in that a climate forest is a forest deliberately managed to fight climate change. This is done by centering on the management of that forest around the capture and storage of additional carbon. And this is something that is of interest, I guess in a lot of senses, to our organization because of some of the other co-benefits that that type of forest management approach may provide in terms of protection of ecological goods and services and wildlife and biodiversity values associated with the Acadian forest. But I should probably also point out, I serve currently as the chair for the Medway Community Forest Co-op, so I'm often thinking with that hat on, as well as I'm one of the founding board members for the Nova Scotia Working Woodlands Trust, which we've recently registered and are currently in the process of becoming an eligible body to hold easements under the appropriate act in Nova Scotia. So I think we have a really strong potential partnership between those organizations. So CARP, who really provides a lot of that project management experience. And one of the things they're going to scrutinize with these larger applications is the ability of an organization to deliver a relatively high budget project. And then the Medway Community Forest Co-op, which brings a land base and quite extensive work already on exploring forest management approaches. And then the land trust is important because of that kind of legal tool piece as a entity that can hold easements. That gives us, I think, a major leg up if we're talking about how we can get into the carbon offset game, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done to prove that you can protect and manage those carbon offsets if we get to the point of creating them. And so what we would like to submit an application for would be a project that explores how we can develop a carbon offset market that is aggregated between probably a combination of private woodland owners, the Medway Community Forest Co-op. We presently manage 15,000 hectares of land. We are still in negotiations with the province for our long-term agreement, but we're hoping within the window of this project, all of that will finally come to a resolution. Really, the County of Annapolis could be one of the potential partners who contributes to a land base, but really the project is about defining that. So I don't want to get ahead of myself or come off as too presumptuous. What we want is a project that scopes out the opportunities and brings things to a point where what's been a great concept is maybe something that can be implemented, sorry. And so I wish I had all of the project details. They just announced this funding opportunity this afternoon. I'm going to work on trying to complete the application template, and then I will be more than happy to share it with everyone because I believe that one of your policies for providing a letter in kind is that you want to see the application, which absolutely makes sense. But I can give you an idea now of the kind of the types of activities or a general sense of what we're looking for, if that would be beneficial.
All right. Could you maybe describe a little bit how you envision the municipality's role in this project as it unfolds? Like, what would you be looking for from us?
It would be kind of in-kind time for, I mean, I guess collaboration, consultation is probably not the right word, but whether it be with the forestry committee or with the CAO to help understand the specific role that the county can play. So can we potentially work with a portion of the land base that the county owns to we would hire the professional services needed, but to develop a carbon inventory, to develop the appropriate management plans, to do all that legwork that's required to create a credit that could be then sold into either a voluntary or compliance market. So it would be, I guess, having access to the right people for some time to define those specific opportunities, and also to provide feedback on any of the materials being developed through the project. And then one of the more specific deliverables we would like to see included is something similar in nature to the climate summit that took place in 2019. And so that could be something that's co-hosted, and we would request all the budget that's needed, but we would want some input from the county onto what does the agenda look like, who are some of our speakers, that kind of like, you know, fleshing out the details of who's saying what during the day.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Gunn, did you have a question?
First of all, I gotta make sure I'm unmuted. Okay. There's several questions and several points. This thing just created so the sun's shining at me. Katie and I apologize. I know you can't quite see me. So listen, this is such a fabulous idea with what MTRI are doing, Clean Annapolis River Project, and the Midway Forest Co-op, of course. So a while ago, I was at one of the meetings, and it was Marcus Wicker, interestingly enough, who came up with the idea that perhaps Midway Forest Co-op should actually, when it comes to the leasing agreement, be looking at the Western Crown lands to maintain. And I think that's a wonderful idea, as a matter of fact. And that should be part of your leasing request with the government. I'm adamant about that. And it's just such a good idea. So my next question would be, how can we take like the Clean Annapolis, maybe your request is moving towards that, the Clean Annapolis River Project, the Western Forest Woodlot Cooperative, Mersey River Forest Cooperative. How can we kind of blend those into one organization that can all have the common effect? Also with what some of the things that Marcus was bringing up was the certifications we were talking about for pre-treatment assessments and the like with properties. And really nobody's training anybody to do that. And I thought, boy, what a great opportunity, because the government in their request for what I understood that they poised you guys with all these questions and that would take questions that would require a lot of analysis and research to answer. So my point there was, well, if they're looking for you to answer those questions, then they should be looking to pay you to find the answers to them. And in that, so that's the way it is, because those questions were quite pertinent and it would cost them a lot to answer those questions. That's the way I look at it.
And so,
anyway.
I guess to your second point about training, that is something that we hope to be able to use these funds for. So to bring in professionals to provide opportunities on training in things like tree marking, which is a lot more commonplace in other provinces like Ontario, but other technical skills that may be required to make climate forestry something that is kind of the norm in our approach to forestry. And that would likely be done using a combination of approaches. So training videos to adapt while we're still unable to host and bring in groups of people and presenters. But we really would like to see with a 5-year project kind of that in the forest training for professionals. And that may also help individuals in kind of shifting their specific role within the forestry sector. So building the capacity for the type of forestry we want to see in the future in Nova Scotia would be one of the things we'd want to spend project funds on. And then in terms,
I wasn't quite finished, and I don't.
Oh, sorry about that.
And I tend to ramble sometimes, but I'm sorry about that too. But I'm trying to get my point across. So anyway, so I think there's got to be a great sort of blending of these organizations come together. I'm completely agree with you. There's another question I would ask you on. What we were just talking about a minute ago, you might have missed it, was your different organizations idea on glyphosate, whether it's good for farming or good for forestry or not good at all. So I want your point on that afterwards. And I gotta go on to one more thing. Annapolis County does have a lot of property. And for years I have, we have the forestry committee, I don't like the word but the forestry committee has worked to have something done with our county lands. Some kind of maintenance to them, forestry, perhaps, ecological forestry model put in, some of the management, to the point where, there would be a time, perhaps when the new council
I'm not getting
comes
audio.
in. Oh, sorry about that.
I did.
There would be a point, I'll make the point and others will hear it, and I guess you won't be able to respond. At some point, perhaps with the new council and with the forestry committee again, we could direct our CAO's office to get somebody, hire a forester or have some forestry organization look at our county property and put it under a plan. And with that, I will finish. Thank you so much. And, can I have your opinion on the glyphosate? Because we're going to meet later in the week.
So with this project, we would be looking at securing funding for project leaders and other professional services that would, I guess, serve as an extension of county staff so that we could do things like forest management planning, carbon inventories, and those type of things that would directly provide benefit to the county. So we can build that into this budget. And in terms of partnerships, I think, I can't agree more on the importance of them. We're fortunate with the community forest to have membership from MTRI as well as CARP. So we have, while our structure for board of directors requires 2 seats and different kind of sectors. So environment is one of those areas where we have representation. And so MTRI and others, Community Forest International, would also be project partners on this. And I guess as an aside, with glyphosate, I'm not going to give you maybe what will be a satisfactory answer, but we are currently just finishing signing a contribution agreement with the Canadian Wildlife Service on a project that will focus on exploring agricultural ecosystems and working directly with the agricultural community to identify what are the top risks to biodiversity values and identify priority strategies for implementation to address those threats. And so application of various pesticides, not exclusively glyphosate, is one of the threats that was already identified and kind of the lead up work to this. And so I guess our preferred approach would be to do a lot more direct discussion and consultation with producers, agricultural organizations, Federation of Agriculture, Provincial Department of Agriculture, so that we understand kind of their barriers to changing practices and work on implementing solutions from that side of things rather than start with a prohibition and then force people to react. So not exactly an answer, but kind of there's some thinking in some of our strategic planning work about how we address those type of issues.
Thank you, Katie. Further questions, Councillor Henry?
I can't begin to tell you how excited I am about this potential. And I got to thank CARP for stepping up to this. I spent the weekend on the phone I'm part of a climate caucus, about 400 municipal councillors throughout Canada. And the big buzz is this particular grant, this pot of money to do this. So there's a tremendous amount of competition for it. And the other thing that's high on the radar of all these municipalities is our climate, our forestry report 2018. And the discussion is that Annapolis County at least has an agreed upon format to be able to expand to do certain things, one of which is a climate forest. And I think what's so brilliant about what Katie is proposing is that's what I think the discussions that the Forestry Committee always looked at, is that at some point we would create a strategy that other individuals, other agencies could step up and help us carry through the spirit of that forestry report. Because the municipality doesn't have the funds, doesn't have the staffing to do all that's necessary. So we always envisioned that there would be places like the Medway Community Forest and CARP and Western Woodlot Owners Association that would step up in some sort of loose confederation of agencies to help us carry through this. And now this has happened. It's everything that I had hoped for. And in our forestry report on pages 8 and 9, we laid out diagrams that how we could get there. And I think Katie has demonstrated now that those diagrams work. That collaborative effort that we brought to link all these agencies together is now here at minimal expense to the county to do all of those things, including what Councillor Gunn is talking about, finding a way to smartly incorporate municipally owned land, to look at the effectiveness and the potential of carbon sequestration and carbon trading on an international market, and ways to involve local woodlot owners and providing them an alternative to clear cutting their land. I mean, this is so beautiful. It's right here. And this allows us funding and time to get it right. So I can't tell you, this is, I never when we started Forestry Report Committee, I remember us scratching our heads trying to figure out how we were going to, if the county agreed to this or the rest of the councilors agreed to this, how we would in the world get it all done. This is how you get it all done. We created this incentive to create a municipal forestry strategy. And now it's happening. And I can tell you, it's the talk of Canada, what we're attempting to do. So I would suggest that we do everything we can to help facilitate CARP in getting this thing off the ground, getting it done right, and being very clear on what our contribution is, what's expected of us, because I think Katie is going to bring that to us. So Katie, I want to thank you for doing that. And I can't tell you, it's a message from heaven. So thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just I should reiterate, like we will eventually hope for a letter of support from the county. I think it's premature for me to ask you for that at this specific point in time. It just so happens when the funding was announced in committee of the whole happened to be in this order. But I am working with Mary Jane Roger from the community forest this afternoon, so we should have an application in a shareable format that I can circulate electronically. And I don't know what the best approach is or how you would normally handle these things. I just know you guys are a critical partner. We see it as an opportunity to leverage funding to take the recommendations that came out of that forestry report and bring them into implementation. But as I'm sure you all know, funding opportunities never come with perfect timelines.
Evan?
And I'm sorry to have rambled on so long, and I forgot one of my points. And I had a discussion this weekend with David Coville at COGS, and he would certainly be prepared to write a letter of support, a letter of interest, if you thought that was necessary to bring in a COGS into this process. So I told him I would pass that on.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Right. So Katie, so you're not looking for a specific action from council right now?
I don't think it's the right time to ask. I don't know if you have a format where you can provide like voting on a motion after a meeting, like by email or something.
What we have done in the past is we have voted on a letter of support pending receipt and review of the application. So that would be as far as we could go, I think, today, and we do have precedent for doing that. John, were you wanting to speak?
Yeah, just Councillor Fowler lost his connection, so I have him on the phone right now. Can you hear Wayne?
Yeah, I can hear.
Can you hear Wayne too?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that, and I just wanted to add that this is what Katie's proposing is mirrors very much what we were attempting to do several months ago with respect to carbon sequestration, and the idea of having somebody here trained that knows how to certify the area so that it's approved and it has the ability to sequester a certain tonnage of carbon. That all has to be, basically guaranteed by these certified officials so that you can put it out in the open market. I think there may be some legislative hurdles as well. I'm not sure where the province is on carbon credits as it relates to, other sectors reaching out. It may be fine, but I think we should look at that as well. And anyway, I think it's a great project. It gives an alternative use in revenue for property owners, while also protecting the forest as much as possible. Doesn't mean you won't be cutting some trees, filtering out old growth and stuff like that. You actually have to do that when you manage a sequestered lot. So there's still the opportunity for biofuels, the cellulose from biofuels that can come from the wood chips of managing these forests. It's a nice link to some other projects that we're working on.
Thank you, John. Katie, I've got to say, I was really, really excited to see this coming up on our agenda. This is exactly where we've been wanting to go. And you and CARP have really taken it on yourselves to shape a structure for how to move this forward. So I'm delighted. We have always appreciated the partnership that we've had with CARP, and we have reason to be grateful for you yet again. I'd ask for a motion in that case to provide a letter of support for the application for an in-kind application to be an in-kind partner for a project application to the Federal Climate Action and Awareness Fund, pending receipt and review of the application form. I think that would be the best way to do that motion. Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor LeBlanc. Discussion on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you so much, Katie.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, let's move on to the Ravenhaven boat launch and parking lot proposal.
Who's going to give us some background?
Hey.
Let's see. John, do you want
Albert.
Albert? Go ahead, Albert.
Hi, all. So what you have is Kirk Hicks owns an island, about 40 acres. He wants to subdivide it up. The issue for him is access, of course. So what he is asking the municipality is if we would consider granting him a parking area, the use of the dock at Ravenhaven, and constructing a parking area on a vacant piece of land across the road from Ravenhaven right now. And what he's done is in your package, you'll see how he wants to divide up his lots, and you'll see what he's asking in terms of his ask. And he's given a number of potential options for the municipality. Basically, with each one of those, he says they're all negotiable. You know, the one that strikes me is number 4. I'm not sure that that's something that can be attached to taxes. And whether or not the county wants another picnic park, for example, on an island is one issue. The second part about it is that if you want a number 2, does the county want to expand and have another campground over on an island? One of the things that pops to mind immediately is maintenance. And I don't believe Public Works or municipal operations has a boat themselves that workers could go over and maintain it. So that's a downside. But he made the request. He wanted to ask council to consider it. Hence the reason this is what you have here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Albert? Deputy Warden?
So our boat launch at Ravenhaven it's not a public access boat launch?
Yes, it is.
Well, and that's what confused me, because if it's a public access boat launch, then I'm under the assumption that anybody can use it. Is that not true?
Don't think the issue is about the use of the boat launch. It is, if you own the island development, where are you going to leave the boats and the trailers? The parking lots at Ravenhaven are not big enough, you know, to be able to handle those types of things right now. That's why he's asking if there's the possibility of building an exclusive use, I guess, the way to describe parking area for parking for people to leave their boat, their trailer, their vehicle, and if they have visitors accessing. So it's not about the use of the pulling up and dropping it. It's a place that they can have exclusive use to keep their vehicles and trailers and visitors parking when they're to the site. Their own lots if he sells them.
Okay. Councillor Sheridan?
So do I understand this correctly, that they want us to provide the lot? They want us to maintain and provide the parking lot?
That's certainly within one of the options. A lot of this has to, you know, a lot of this has to be first and foremost decided if you're even interested as another type of development. But I suspect that's exactly what it would mean. And I suspect that it also means that some people may want to leave their boat year round on that site. But that's exactly what a negotiation is about, Councillor. Yep.
Yeah. So would it be possible to negotiate possibly they take care of the parking lot if they want it there, if we were able to supply the land for them? That's just a question. An option. Yep. Okay.
And as I said, this is just an exploration at the time. That's all it is. The difficulty that you get in with any property is, would it be better to sell it to the developer, or would it be better to look at an exclusive use? So that's where the difficulty comes. As municipalities, we don't tend into using municipal property for exclusive use.
Right. So possibly the selling of the land may be better if we don't want to maintain and look after.
That's another, and that wasn't listed there. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Well, I guess I had the same concerns. I'm thinking we need to buy a piece of land for parking that we have to take care of for somebody to use and use our boat launch to go to the specific 14 pieces of divided land on this partial island at the cost to our taxpayers. I really don't know how that works. I'm confused because I'm thinking we have not, as the deputy warden said, it's a public access boat launch. So why wouldn't he buy a piece of land and maintain that piece of land and do whatever he wants with that? But the public access is still there. I'm just a little perplexed on the fact of how we're going to do this, because I think it's not a bad idea. However, I don't think it should be something that we should be looking at as far as the cost, the extra cost for everything. Those are my concern at this particular time. Do you have any clarity on that, Albert?
The only clarity I can add to it is the municipality already owns a vacant piece of land across the street from Ravenhaven. And that might have been one option, is to sell that at fair market value and
So
allow
that's-
them to take. The other issue, though, is simply, he's also asking about, does the municipality want picnic sites on an island, or does the municipality want to create another campground, which there is a campground at Ravenhaven over on the island as well. So there's a wide range of things available. He never wrote it down. That doesn't mean that if council is interested, they could dispose of that property to them and allow them to go that way. The only issue that's there right now, of course, with this past summer, we've been locking the gates that go down to the boat launch and to the entirety of the Ravenhaven site after 7 o'clock in the evening, if you recall.
Yes.
What he's asking for is more of an unlimited use, which would then specify that if we were going to think about trying to lock up Ravenhaven, would mean to create some sort of a fence to separate the boat launch. If you wanted to leave it open till all hours, for example, you would have to separate it by fencing or by something else to keep the Ravenhaven section part not accessible after hours.
Yes, so that's a big problem right there. Okay.
Yeah, because I would imagine, after night, some people may want to go out, run into town, and if Ravenhaven Gate is closed, that's not going to satisfy what he's talking about there in his first one, which was, I think he had mentioned use in his first one, use of the existing boat launch year round for Sandy Bottom Island. So it is another thing that have to be cognizant about, with this type of proposal.
Yeah.
And that use is different from the casual use for recreational boaters, because it really winds up becoming a right of way in order to access property that people will own. So there are different obligations incumbent upon you for that kind of a setup.
Yes.
John, you'd like to contribute? Then I've got Councillor Gunn and Councillor Sheridan.
Yeah, I think the individuals wants to negotiate. There's a few questions that will have to get answered, obviously. Just to comment on the existing boat launch, it's not great. It's very difficult actually to get your boat in the water because it's such a shallow water. The water is shallow so far out that you're backing your vehicle right into the water in order to launch a boat. And so that may be an issue as well. And the boat that I experienced launching there was not a big boat. It was only a 16-foot aluminum boat. And but had to send it out quite a ways into the lake in order to get it off the trailer.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn?
Thank you very much. I think this is a great idea. To tell you the truth, I think it could be a win-win for the county and everything. The last few years, we've all complained about how much the bill for Ravenhaven is. Well, not all of us, but certainly some of us have complained about how much the bill for Ravenhaven is. And so we've got a gentleman that wants to come along and subsidize it a little bit. By the sounds of it, we own the property across the road where he wants to put a parking lot. If he puts the parking lot in at his expense, and we let him have a right of way down the, I guess it would be the north end of the parking lot. I'm just trying to rearrange myself here. It's not a bad idea. The pier that's there, Well, that one side of it, there's no reason why that couldn't be cleaned up and used as well. On top of that, now I'm just throwing something out here in the left field, folks, but could we lease him that whole property? And my God, wouldn't that take that out of our pocketbook and put it in his? Lease him, so he gave us a few $1,000s a year, and still we could put a what's it called, a caveat in the lease agreement with him that beach stays open, and that he can run the campground and the rest of it there. Keep the campground on our side in our area, and he can sell his lots over there. The lots sold and cabins built there, that's good dollars for the county of Annapolis tax stream. I'm not against that at all. I'm for it. And so, yeah, things can be worked out. I think this could be really good. It's not the most perfect plan I've heard to start with, but by God, I think he's got an idea there. And I think if the county of Annapolis was sensible, we'd look at that and maybe make the offer a little sweeter for him. Maybe he can look after that. Maybe he can get that out of our pocketbook. Thank you.
Albert, you wanted to respond?
One point, Steve McGinnis just reminded me that on a portion of that property across the street is the septic field for Raven Haven. So we'd have to ensure that was being kept in municipal hands. So it would take a bit of switching around to find out if that property is big enough to hold a parking area and be subdivided, if that was an option as well, and retain enough portion there for the septic system to operate.
Councillor Sheridan?
I guess there's a lot of questions. I'm thinking maybe we should have a workshop or something on this. In regards to the piece of property, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I thought the recreation staff was going to do like a trail or something on the other side of the park. Do I remember that correctly at one time? Was that mentioned? Possibility. So I guess if the recreation staff has no use for the land, and again, probably workshop would be a best route to go, because there are a lot of questions. And the other one was the liability. Like, it's going to create more people if having access to that, and we have infrastructure there. So would it be more at risk for us to have people coming and going at all hours of the night? They have it open 24/7, so to speak. So I was just wondering about that liability portion.
Albert, any thoughts?
Okay. My first thought is the answer, I think, is yes, because as I said, what we did last year was we locked it up in the evening. So the more people coming and going, it is a public site. That's the first and foremost, that everybody understands that it is, the boat launch and stuff is a public site, and it's meant to be used. The difference is the hours that probably could be used. But liability, that's something for the insurance people to look at. But there will be more people, obviously.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald?
A couple things I haven't heard mentioned yet. I don't believe those 14 cottages / cabins have been built yet. That is a substantial amount of material that would likely have to be transported by boat to there. And I don't imagine they'll all be built in 1 month. It's probably going to be over several years. And that'll change the environment of Raven Haven with stacks of material to be transported by boat or barge to the island, right? That'll change a lot of things. I'm not convinced that's the direction we plan on going. And if the land across the road, which the county owns, is sold, we need to remember that there are no land use bylaws in that area, and it doesn't mean anything in the future. Let's say his project fails for 14 cabins, cottages, lots to be sold, then he's got that chunk of land to do whatever he wants with, and that may not be favorable to Raven Haven and the county as well. Those are just a couple of things that need to be considered before any decision is made, especially building materials for 14 buildings and docks, private docks, right? That's a lot of stuff. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much. This has been an interesting discussion. To what end? I'm not sure. Certainly, we're not being asked to make a decision today on this project. As each one of my colleagues speaks and puts in a different item we have to discuss, I think it's beyond the range of what we do today. I agree with Councillor Gunn and others. This, I think, is a tremendous opportunity that we ought to consider. I would like to think that our planning staff will, having heard this conversation, get back in touch with the gentleman in question and perhaps to come back with us with a step-by-step plan and what has to be done. I'm not sure we can take a decision today. Thank you.
Councillor Morrison, Councillor LeBlanc.
Well, I was kind of heading in the same way because I was thinking of leasing and liability and the cadets and the septic field that is on that property. There's more questions to be answered than we have time to do that. We need to sit down with all the people that can give us answers and before we can make any such decision, because yeah, it's a good idea. There's no doubt, and a lot of people would be interested in something like that. Yeah. So thank you. I think we should move it on to some other format.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. And if I could just interject one thing, because, you know, we also got to, I don't know how much we have to ask the residents of, because there's a lot of residents, a lot of cabin owners out there now. I wonder, do we have to go through a planning process to even allow this? And perhaps, Albert, you could answer that for me, or through the warden, of course. But do you get my question, what I'm asking there?
Yep. So the answer for that one, of course, is that there is no planning process there for it. There is a process, a public meeting if you disposed of municipal land. That's one thing. The issue is also, you know, more of a public relations question as opposed to a legal question. So what that means is that there is a lot more people using that lake, a lot more people bringing boats, trailers, and those kinds of things, and visitors to the island coming back and forth. Yes, there is the issue of the construction, but one other issue is when you build a cabin or stuff like this, you have yearly maintenance of things. So you will be using it much more than just an access. Simply, you have to think of it as a driveway. You know, so there will be a lot more use of that for construction materials, not just to bring a boat, you know, and then somebody come back to town because they want to go in town for supper. The problem with this right now is that he's got a number of options. What council, if they're interested in this, you know, it's kind of hard to just go at a broad gun right now, but rather something more defined and detailed. So, you know, is a workshop a good idea? That's entirely up to you guys to decide, you know, whether you want to move in this direction or anything else. The other questions that it comes back to as well, is the municipality also interested in creating its own campsite over there? Because that's one of the options he's saying. And the other one he's saying, are you interested in a picnic park over there? If there's other options, that's why I think you might want to have further discussions before getting too far into it, asking for a report from the planning staff, because there's too many options broad and open here.
That certainly was my assessment of this. There are so many options for how this could be developed that it would be helpful to have, frankly, I think it'd be helpful to have this referred to staff for some consideration and some recommendations. We want to see this optimized for the in terms of revenue that the municipality might realize. We want to see it optimized for the infrastructure that's there, because if we have to fence off the boat ramp from part of Ravenhaven, we have to know exactly what that would look like. We want to make sure that this doesn't impinge in a negative way upon the recreational use of Ravenhaven. There's a lot of things to be considered, and I'd sort of like to see this referred back to staff for some more consideration, some narrowing of the options before it comes to council for a workshop. I think lots of questions would be asked, but I'd like to have a clearer sense of where we go. I like the idea of a picnic park on the property, but that has immediate implications for staff, because you'd have to, especially in the time of COVID, if you're operating a picnic park over there, you're going to be obliged to provide daily cleaning services. And that means we need to obtain a boat. I'm not certain what sort of safety training will be required for staff to be crossing the lake on a daily basis. But there's a lot of implications that affect a number of different departments. And so I'd like to hear some guidance from the departments who would be affected and how they think that perhaps this could be optimized to benefit the municipality and also give the developer what they want. Councillor Fowler and then Councillor Henning.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to staff to be reviewed.
Moved by Councillor Fowler to refer to staff for further consideration and recommendations. Seconded by Councillor Gunn. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Henning.
I'd like to support that motion, but I think it's also that the conclusion of that also should, I think, incorporate not only recommendations from the staff, but also a willingness to do a workshop on it, because I have never clearly in my mind understood the long-term goals of Ravenhaven. It seems like we visit this every year in one part, in one procedure, whether it's roofing a building, concessions. I'd like to see it eventually end up in some sort of organized, agreed upon strategy on where we're going with Ravenhaven. And this is just one part of that. So I'd like to see it a little bit broader. Not only is staff bringing back recommendations, but part of those recommendations would be including some sort of preliminary discussion on the staff's recommendation of how an overall strategy might begin to look. I don't want to just piecemeal by handing it off to staff just on this one particular project without giving some deeper reflection to a broader strategy on Ravenhaven.
Is that a strategy that you think, once staff has done some consideration of this project, is that a strategy that you think might emerge from a workshop that we could have as council with staff present?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Do you want to amend the motion to include that, or do we want to simply have that as an understanding that that's what we'll do? That'll be our next step when staff comes back with some recommendations.
No, I don't think the motion needs to be amended. It's just that keep that in mind, that there is a broader strategy that's lacking.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Henning. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Fowler to refer this matter to staff for further consideration and recommendations. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. All right. Next is a request for decision for additional capital funding. And I think that's going to go to Steve.
A committee of the whole recommended council to approve an additional capital funding as follows. $12,000 be approved from the Annapolis Water Reserve for the repair of a DAF unit and replacement of the backwash pump at the Cornwallis Water Treatment Plant. $20,000 be approved from the Bridgetown Water Utility Reserve for the groundwater well pump replacement.
Seconder for the motion. Seconded by Councillor Prout. Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Stephen, maybe you want to start off by just speaking to this a little bit?
Yeah, these are, as the report points out, and I apologize, my cat is talking to me. The two systems that we're looking at are three systems, actually, two at the water treatment plant in Cornwallis, especially the DAF or DAF unit. We have backup systems for them, but we're down to one system. If that system fails, then we have a real problem with the ability to treat water. We have a significant storage, but we'd like to move forward with the repairs because the redundancy is part of our operating program. Same as the backwash pump. The backwash pump is used to actually flow water backwards through the filtration system, removes all the debris from what's been already filtered out, and then that's pumped over to the sewer system for treatment at our sewer treatment plant. In terms of the well, There was a power surge there. This is one of our older wells. It's about 10 years old, our older pumps on the original well field for Bridgetown. We're still trying to determine if there was an insurable event there that would allow us to reclaim the money back. But in the meantime, we still have to replace that pump. As it's part of the overall operating and pump requirements for our approval. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Stephen, folks? Deputy Warden.
So after this money is taken out of the reserve, what is the total left in the reserves?
The reserve balances are at the bottom of the report in terms of what their current balances are.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Gunn?
Yes, Steve. So we're talking about going to a UV system at Cornwallis, aren't we, to treat that water before it's released? Wasn't there talk of that?
Yeah, that's on the sanitary system, correct?
That's on the sanitary. This isn't related to the sanitary system at Cornwall.
No, this is the water treatment plant.
Yeah. Well, this is the water treatment plant. Okay. So, yeah, okay.
All right. Anything further, folks? Being none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Would folks like to take a 10-minute recess right now just to stretch your legs and grab a cup of coffee, and we'll resume at 10 minutes to 11? Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you back to our meeting committee of the whole. We are moving on now to departmental reports, and our first is community development. Could I have a motion to receive that report, please? Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Hemming. Any questions about the report? Questions or comments? Councillor Sheridan?
I just want to thank staff for starting to look into the playground extra lot there in Nicktown. Just want to show my appreciation by saying thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Further questions or comments? Be none, all in favor. Oh, Councillor LeBlanc, go ahead.
On page 58, section number 5, we have 1, 2, 3 stop work orders. 3 different places, I presume.
Okay, number
5.
Yeah, okay. So stop work orders in that case, I was looking at 7 because we also have some notice of violations that are currently outstanding as well. So the first one, stop work order, has been a long-standing one.
Yes.
That has to go through the courts. That's why I said the courts are trying to work something out there. I can't get into specific details about it. The other one is just a simple one where the location of accessory building, somebody started building without a permit. It's a simple one. It's not a development permit because it was out in the general development zone.
Oh, okay. And the notification of violations, there are quite a few chickens that need places to live.
I think I was going to say the pop, but I won't say that. If you'll notice that the 2 of them have been resolved, the third is still ongoing, meaning that our normal process is a 30-day notice goes out first, then it's a 14-day notice. If there's no compliance after the 14 days, then I will bring it to committee to hold, because the role of development officer is to administer a land use bylaw. Council is the one who's appointed to enforce. So after that, I suspect this one will come ahead as a recommendation in November committee to whole or November council for a decision.
Okay, great.
If it is not resolved, sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Albert.
Any further questions, folks? Be none, all in favor of the motion to receive the report signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Let's move on to protective services. Could I have a motion to receive that report? Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Thank you. Questions or comments about this report? Councillor Hemming.
This is on dogs at large on the last page, page 61. I see the dogs at large, but the last line on dogs at large
No,
one says
tell me this is not
the
happening.
work on issue from the town of Annapolis Royal. Can I get some clarification on what that might be?
And we also do the dog bylaw for the town of Annapolis Royal. And we have had a continued issue with people who own a dog. I'm walking through the town. There had been an attack. They have been advised that they have restrictions on how they are to walk their dogs, not to be loose, not to be without muzzle. And we have had some issues with that. So we are proceeding with that matter.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor LeBlanc.
I was looking at number 1B in the manager's report. There's a property there that people continue to break in and so forth, and there's been a fire. And
we have been monitoring this property for quite some time.
Yes.
Working well with the property owner up to this point, but the last time when they broke in, they caused a fire. We did have fire department, RCMP there. I have spoken with everyone. Unfortunately, the owner is right up to here with going back to the property over and over and over again. This has been going on for months. So I felt it was appropriate to advise that it may be an issue coming up. It is a very large building that if we were to call a tender, it is going to be expensive.
so this is a home we're talking about, a full-size home?
Oh, no, it's a
What was that? I couldn't hear you.
It's an industrial building.
Oh.
It's a very large building.
Oh, okay. So, okay. And then the note says that taxes have not been paid for the last 2 years on that same property. Yes? Okay.
All right. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you.
Muted.
Oh, you're still muted, Councillor Gunn. Councillor Gunn, would you like to?
There we are.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. Back to 1 and the bylaw enforcement dogs. It says 3 dogs are picked up and 2 returned to the owners and 1 was euthanized. Now, without getting into too much of specifics, can I ask if that dog was from District 8?
No, sir. It was not.
It wasn't? Okay, then my issue with that is done. So now I want to go to what somebody just brought up. I've heard of a very big building along the lines that in the Bridgetown area, that's a hell of a mess and they've been starting fires in it. And if that's going to come down, I can't believe the taxes have gone that long on the place. And if that comes down, that's going to be a very, very expensive thing.
Can I just interrupt for a moment, please? The phone caller who just dialed in, can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, it's Councillor McNeil.
Thank you.
Get kicked out again.
Yes, that's going to be a very expensive thing to deal with. So I would hope that a lot of other options will be looked at before that place is actually torn down. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
So in regards to waste management, you have 8 complaints received in September and you're still working on resolving other files. I was just wondering what type of complaints were you having, Cheryl?
The complaints that we receive are illegal dumping, pretty much always. There were maybe a few that had to do with the fall cleanup, and after the cleanup ended, people were still taking items out And so we're always going to be kind of behind the tail chasing it and, you know, trying to get compliance from residents to take them away from the side of the road if you have missed your collection. But we have had a lot of illegal dumpings this year that we really didn't, up until this point, we didn't know how much we had been doing, but I've been collecting the information since we started and actually it is quite significant.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Councillor LeBlanc?
Could that illegal dumping be because we didn't have spring cleanup? Would that be an effect on that, or is it just?
It could be that we didn't have a spring cleanup, so during time people have just been putting stuff out. Some of it is just they go to back roads and they just dump their stuff, and that's always happened, whether or not it was we had cleanup or not. There may be contributing factors in the fact that they don't know where to take their stuff right now. I think there might be, and they just get frustrated and they dump it.
Really?
Okay, Councillor Sheridan?
In regards to that, I have had several complaints in regards to the timing, what time the C&D disposal site is open in Lawrencetown. And people are really getting frustrated and they have to pay almost double to dump as well. So I think that's a contributing factor. Big time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, any further questions or comments about this report? Hearing none, all in favor of receiving the report signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next, municipal services. We have a motion to receive this report, please. Moved by Councillor Prout, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about this report? Councillor Gunn. And you're muted. There we go.
Thank you. And back to where I was here. In the capital program, the equipment acquisitions. My God, we're going to buy a lot of new equipment. And what I really came down to was the trucks. We're buying 3 new trucks. Crew cab fleet trucks acquisition have been showing our intended surplus. So we're getting rid of 3 and we're getting 2 new half tons and a new ton. Is that it? And these are for operations in Bridgetown, Granville, or where, or the county in whole. That's what I'm trying to figure out through a lot of this. And maybe we can start by answering that question.
Stephen?
Warden.
Stephen? Okay. I can't hear you. You don't seem to be muted, but you've got no sound.
Are your headphones plugged in?
Let's give him a moment to figure out what's going on technically.
You did mute there. Yeah, no, can't hear you, Steve.
Stephen, try unplugging your headphone completely. And just try that now. Oh, still can't hear you. Okay. Do you have a cell phone that you could use to zoom in?
What was the question again, sir?
Oh, it was about the capital Oh, am I muted again? Wait a second.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. It was about the capital program and the equipment acquisition. So we're going to have a new sidewalk plow, new Kubota tractor, plow, salt spreader, and the rest of the toys. And another one in the sports hub, a turf tractor acquisition now. And then we're going to get 3 new trucks So this is a lot of money. Where is it going to come from? Are we looking to get rid of the old trucks, auction them off? What? And can the two pieces of equipment at the start of it be combined into one piece of equipment to do all those jobs? So it's just a few questions about, that whole purchase.
Stephen has called in on my phone. Stephen, can you hear? And can you hear Steve?
You folks hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I will stop my video so the timing is better. The sports hub equipment is specific to the sports hub, and because of the delicate nature of both the fields, so they can't really do two pieces of item. The sidewalk is a much heavier piece of equipment that allows us to both mow and to maintain the sidewalks with a blower and a plow in the wintertime. In terms of the trucks, replacing one truck in Bridgetown, trucks in the county, they've mileaged out and they're quite aged. We haven't had a significant replacement program, but we also have a much broader area to look after in terms of the additional resources.
Both the park and
Upper Clements Park and Waterloo Park, and we've taken on those in terms of that's been amalgamated into operations. I think I covered everything, Councillor. If I haven't, please ask.
Well, thank you for the response. I know it's difficult, Steve, but it's I do. Last month I brought up the part about the vehicles going back and forth, people using vehicles, and I was assured that county vehicles aren't going back and forth to people's houses. And I'm kind of wondering if we're not buying, new vehicles so that people can use them as, private vehicles.
No, we're not.
And that's
We're
my
not.
concern.
We are not.
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan.
I've got a couple questions. I'll start with the Basin View building. Have you heard any further information on the results of the testing?
Finished up all their field work last Friday. I just got pictures and just seen the pictures in the report this morning. I really haven't had a chance to review it yet. I want to review it and then meet with the CAO and see where we go from there. They've done some significant coring on the pool, and I hope to get some very detailed results and in terms of an action plan as to what's next. But as I said, I just received the report, seen the report this morning, so I didn't have a chance to review it, but it will be coming forward to council soon.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had received it yet. Also, under waste management, it says JOHS committee site inspection completed. What is JOHS stand for?
Joint Occupational Health and Safety.
Okay. Also, one other question. Under your J-class road paving, it says that they are paving an additional Taylor Drive in Clementsport, and that's within our budget. But then it's forwarding a cost estimate for the north end of Lefney Lane, which is not included in the approved program. Is that within our budget?
No, I haven't seen the numbers yet from TIR, but the Taylor Drive one was a bit of a weird circumstance in that every other road within Clementsport was paved, but Taylor Drive wasn't because it didn't quite meet the criteria, as my report says. I asked TIR to go back and have a look. They've agreed to road, which has the most residents in that community, in that little node of the community, to repave that road. They had really good prices on asphalt this year, so it allowed us to consider roads that were eliminated, I think in the case of Taylor Drive, because of the definition of a repaving program. So they're going to move forward with that one. I think their challenge is the capacity of the number of contractors they have. They've got good unit prices on asphalt, but I'm not sure how many contractors are available. Some of them coming in from PEI. So anyway, that's the issue. Taylor Drive, it's within the approved budget. It's already been approved by council.
So what about Lethny Lane? It's not included in the approved program. Is that within our budget?
I don't know. I haven't received that number from GIR. They were supposed to forward me an engineering estimate.
So that would come to us before to get approval before it's done, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Come back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Is Letney Drive in Clementsport as well?
Pardon me?
Is Letney Drive Lane in Clementsport as well?
No, it's in Granville.
Oh, okay.
Right. Any further questions on this report, folks?
Yeah, I do.
Sorry, that's right. Councillor Gunn and then Councillor McNeil afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, Letney Lane, you know, being a property owner on Letney Lane, along with a lot of other families, they were kind of thinking up there. It was one more time. It was. I hate to even think about it, but it may have been the. Well, there's big questions why Letney Lane wasn't included in that pay, and a lot of the families up there one more time have felt a little hard done by, because years ago Letney Lane, the north end of Letney Lane, I won't get into specifics of why or anything, but they weren't included in the water or the sewer years ago. Build end of Granville. So yeah, people got feeling a little left out up there, not thinking that their taxes aren't as, you know, as a matter of fact, the lower part of Letney Lane, there's not even a house that borders on that street. They have access to the street, but they don't face on the street. Letney Lane's got the only houses on it that actually face it, and the north end. So anyway, they're feeling a little left out. I hope we can get straightened out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McNeil?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question. How come Litany Lane wasn't done? But anyway, that section was on the list, but there was only a short section of it done. And from there, from North Street down to Garden. Anyway, nevertheless, my other question is, I see the snow tenders here, and we've got the West Paradise Transfer Station on there. How come we're not using our loader with the big blade that it's got with it?
Repeat that again, Councillor. I didn't quite get it.
What's that?
Could you repeat your question? I didn't quite get it over my phone.
Oh, sorry. It's the transfer station, the snowplow tender. How come we're not using our new loader with the big blade that it has to do the snow removal ourselves?
We're going to take every opportunity. Generally, they're not on site, and that site has to be open for the curbside collection vehicles. And once those curbside collection vehicles come in, that loader is busy all day. So if we can eliminate it, we will. We look for a unit price, but for now, at our discussions with the site operations, we prefer that site to be open 6 a.m. or so prior to operation. We'll bring up the site.
No, I understand that, but why couldn't we pay a couple hours overtime if needed? Just have the operator just plow it before anything even comes in. Got the machine, we've got the blade.
Yeah, that's a fair consideration. I think when we get the unit prices, we can have a look at that, Councillor.
All right.
Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I was on a road in my district the other day, and they were complaining about the state of the pavement. And I said, I'll find out. So I found out that it was part of, recall the province last year said in 3 years, they're going to do 5 years worth of pavement. And so I was able to find out that that road was going to be paved. And the residents wanted to thank some guy named McNeil for getting it paved. And I said, well, I'm the guy who brought you the word, so you can decide who you want to thank. Thank you.
Alec, tell them I said they're welcome.
I think it was the good-looking McNeil.
You're talking to him.
Councilor
Hey, Steve, thank you, Timothy. Steve, if you're still there, Margarettsville Water, has the restriction been lifted? And if so, are the residents advised yet, or how's that? Where are we at there?
We're still monitoring. We did get a significant increase last week. So I haven't had a chance to review with my operations manager and the CAO. But we do have a significant amount of storage there. It's just my concern is the weather has been so unpredictable in terms of our ability to store water in the wintertime. I have a concern. We'll review all the restrictions. Maybe we'll see if we can loosen up a couple of the restrictions to allow some moving forward. But we did get a significant increase last week. I just haven't had a chance to review with the operations manager.
Of course not. It was a long weekend. Thank you very, very much, Mr. McGinnis. I'm done.
Deputy Warden.
First thing, I can't hear Bert when he talks, and I don't even have him on my screen. And the second thing is, are we still hauling water to Margarettsville, or is that part done?
That wrapped up about 3 weeks ago.
So do we have a cost on what it costs to transport the water to that water station?
The last invoice I saw wasn't the total. The final total was about $32,000.
So, and I think I brought it up before. I mean, have we as been looking for other options on trying to provide them with water?
I think through the source water protection plan process, we kind of reviewed the history and the frustrating history of trying to find a suitable groundwater source, which they have tried in the past with very little success. Just the shelf structure up there really doesn't allow for a supply well that can supply an entire community. Now, during the discussions through the Source Water Protection Committee, there's apparently a perched water table. I'm just getting south of the current site, which may garner some further investigation. I think from my perspective, in terms of a long-term plan, we'll see if these very dry summers continue or whether this one was a particular anomaly. But I do think it's worth considering as a project to do some test drilling next year or the year after in terms of seeing if there's any additional groundwater sources that we can look for.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further in this report, folks? Okay, none. All in favor of the motion to receive the report signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have the Chief Administrative Officer's report. Could I have a motion to receive that report, please?
So move.
Moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about this report, folks? Councillor Sheridan.
In regards to the operational demands for the new sport field in Bridgetown, what kind of demands are we looking at?
Operational wise, it is the power to the lights for lighting, the maintenance of the artificial turf and the grass and the watering of any of the grass areas that we're responsible for. So they would be operational costs, including manpower to work the equipment. And it will put some extra demands on the county. And Steve and I are going to be looking at what we may have to do in the future to make sure it's operated properly and it's well maintained.
So you have no idea on approximately how much money that would entail?
Well, we received some capital money for the capital equipment, which was great. I would say, and Steve can come into this, I think it's going to cost maybe $50,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
What we're looking at.
Right. Further questions? Councillor LeBlanc and then Councillor McDonald.
About the maintenance and watering and manpower for the sports field, could that be an opportunity for, especially in the summertime, for hiring students through the government at a pretty big cost to go through that, or is it a process that's too entailed that a possible student couldn't do it?
It's a great question. The big thing is that you're not having to maintain it all the time. You should do certain things after major events to keep the artificial turf in good working condition. But ultimately, you're going to have staff that are doing other things in the community as well. And so they'll be doing other things and then coming back to maintain the field. That's Steve calling in. Hang on 1 second.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think
Can't
Can't hear. Can't hear.
one of the things I'm considering bringing forward to council next year is the consideration for the installation of a sprinkler system. We spend a lot of time with the nurses up there, regulating hydrants, water, at the social.
Could you hear him?
No, not at all.
Not all.
Steve, Steve. Steve. Hear me. He's still talking. I'm not sure what he said. Steve, time out. You can't hear me. I'm just going to end the conversation.
That'll do it.
Yes, Steve was saying that he really wants to take a look at the sprinkler system because they're having to move all the large hoses frequently in order to do it. It was quite a process. Needed a few people out there. The question that you had, Diane, just to finishing up as it relates to students, as usual, the department, when they hire students, they will.
Steve.
Steve is on you.
Steve.
Sorry, John, I got dropped. That happens.
Yeah, Steve. No, I hung up because you couldn't hear me. Council, I was just explaining your point about the water sprinklers because it wasn't coming in clearly. So I'm just going to hang up. If you want to put your screen on, if I'm mistaken, just give me a timeout and I'll revert. But the phone's not working here that well. Okay. So, Diane, summer students on to deal with mowing and Steve.
Go, John, and I'll jump in.
Okay, I'm going to hang up the phone because it's okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. Problems with technology. So, yeah, to be able to use students in the program, yes, but to be trained on certain equipment, that's another thing. If time allows.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There's Steve.
So, Steve, so what I was saying was about the sprinkler systems and the running of the hoses to cover all the various aspects of the field to water them. Steve would like to look at some sort of sprinkler system in the future. Because the man hours, you need a couple of people to move hoses around and whatnot. And so that is a small concern going forward. As it was related to the summer students, Steve, I said, whenever the departments apply for summer students, they work them into what they're doing. And if time for training is allowed to operate maybe the machine that's on the artificial turf, we look at that. But if we already have staff trained, we'll likely keep them working on it.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald and then Councillor Sherritt and then Councillor Gunn.
I have more of a comment than a question. Since the internet announcement with the county and Seaside last Friday, I have not received one phone call on internet. I know it's only been 4 or 5 days, but I really appreciate the work that went into that communication. And I want to thank the CAO and Seaside for doing that. And although what I would have preferred it a month ago, having it last Friday was beneficial. I'm sure lots of residents of Annapolis County are sending their phone calls and emails to Seaside as we speak. Thank you again, John, for you and your group.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Sheridan.
So back to the sports field. The sports field will generate some type of revenue over time, will it not? And if so, is that included in the extra, is 50,000 on top of the revenue that it will generate, or?
That's a great question. We have not looked at fee structures in any great detail. I think that's something that we look at, especially for perhaps adult leagues and people that are, you know, the working population. If it's youth, there may be a nominal fee, for, but we've not looked at that. We'll compare what other operations are doing and try to make it as fair and equitable as possible.
Okay. I just have one other quick question in regards to the partial reopening of county offices. How's that going? And is there any additional staff in offices now, or?
There may be a few more additional staff, but we've kept it fairly flexible, where people are still working at home. I'm at home today. I'll explain why I'm home today. I had to go to the health clinic this weekend, not for COVID related matter, but for another matter for which I would need an antibiotic. And when I went there, they asked if I had a temperature, and I said, I may have had a temperature on one of the evenings. And so they automatically put you in the COVID room. They take the test, they swab. I don't think I have it, but that's the precautions that they do. So I'm told to stay at home until I get called on Wednesday, and that's what I'm doing. So that can impact any one of our employees. There's been other employees who've gone through the same thing. That could happen at any time. That affects our ability to involve staff in, because state of an emergency orders in place to protect the public, and I have to go through this 2-day waiting period just so that you know, everybody's comfortable that I have it, and
Great. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Sorry for your issue.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. You know, John, when it comes back to the operation, the 50 grand a year to operate that sports hub, or I guess that's what the field up there is now, is that the price of the tractor included in that maintenance and all of that, and the cost of what the washrooms, because we still really can't operate that. There's no facilities there. This is going to be quite a rabbit hole we're going down to if we face it now early and think about it and know that, you know, coming down the line, this facility is not a cheap thing that we've taken on, and it's not going to be. And I don't understand that $50,000 a year is going to do it when you start adding the price of facilities and sprinkler systems and new tractors and operation and maintenance to it. So it's just this, to be straight up, is this something that we just have to somehow fit into our budget now over the next few years?
I think part of it will fit into our existing budget. But if you want to take a look at the total cost of what I think it is, and that's using existing staff to go over there at certain times. If you look at the hourly commitment from those things, if you look at the equipment use and maintenance maintenance schedules on those equipment, there could be a slight fee for that from one department to another. Those are all things that we'll take into consideration. And it may be less than 50. Some places, I think Acadia at one time said it was 10,000 to maintain their artificial turf. But that's just the artificial turf. We have grass and we have watering responsibilities, and a lot of water can be used to water sports fields. A lot of water.
to follow that up. So will we cap what we put in our budget that goes towards that facility?
Well, that's up to council in the sense that we'll put a budget in, and if somebody said you cannot exceed that budget, our goal is that we never exceed our budget. So whatever the budget is typically the cap. But
So that's something that should be put to council at some point, what we actually want to put
specifically
into there.
Specifically, if we found that we were drawing near to being over 50,000, we would come back to council. And you could ask for that.
So we basically just set that cap at 50,000
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
It won't cost us any more than 50,000 a year.
I haven't finished the analysis yet. It was Steve. And, but it's in that ballpark, we think.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henry?
I just, two things. One, I didn't know that you're experiencing some illness, John. I wish you good health, number one. And,
thank you.
And second of all, I want to express my appreciation for the work that you've done on the internet. And the reason I say that is I had an opportunity this weekend to talk to a dear friend in a long away place that really was instrumental in the first community-driven internet system in North America. And it's very successful. It started in 1992. And as we were discussing a variety of things, internet came up. And he mentioned three things that made that program successful. And it looks like that we've followed those. The first thing he said, when you're looking at a community-driven internet system, and you're really speaking about citizens as opposed to just consumers, it changes the landscape. And the way to deal with that is you have to remain extremely flexible in what you're doing in terms of the way contracts are written, in terms of decision-making process. That extreme flexibility is absolutely critical. The second of all, you have to be willing to make mistakes and identify those early on and move beyond those. And at the end of the day, with a community-driven internet system, or really any community-driven process, you have to keep falling forward. You just have to keep moving forward. And we've done that. And finally, we're seeing that level of success. And I want to thank you for your leadership on that file. Thank you.
Look, there's other staff with the county that I would extend that thank you to. It's been a real team effort. And I do want to say that I agree with the flexibility piece. As council knows, we've built a business case uptake on the internet project. So the customers pay $99 a month for our gigabit service. And then we have a small portion for people that qualify on our tax revenue for a tax exemption. If those folks can demonstrate that as well, then we would look at a lower cost internet service, probably half the speed of the gigabit service. And that's all we have for now. But I've been getting calls, people, for example, that have cottages wanting to know, if I get internet, can I get a reduced rate when I'm away? All kinds of questions. Some people want to know if we bundle, we have other packages. And I would simply say that all of that is possible. And what we're doing now is just sticking to our business case to build this. But once it's built, I think the opportunity to see how all the revenues work in making this project work, an opportunity to be as flexible as we can. But I would come back to ask council for that, because council would have to approve those fees and those structures.
Okay, Councillor LeBlanc, and then Councillor Sheridan, and then Councillor Fowler.
And McNeil too, please.
Okay. Councillor LeBlanc.
Well, I forgot what I wanted to ask, but in any case, I'd like to say that it's nice to see that the internet is now being used and tried out. And the fact of the matter is, from the time, can you give me kind of like a timeline when Seaside started to this particular point? How many months has it been that we have a...
Okay, so Seaside is the company that will be operating the system. So
okay, yeah.
They're an established internet company in Nova Scotia. So they're going to be operating our services. They'll be maintaining it. They'll be going to homes if they have to do any repairs. That's all going to be with Seaside. Eagle is building.
Yes, that's what I want to say.
Eagle is building the dark fiber on all the poles, and they'll put drop fiber by properties. From that area, Seaside will connect from that drop location. It's a simple plug-in, and they'll take it to the house, and then that person will have internet. Why it's difficult to give timelines is we have submitted all our make-ready work to Nova Scotia in different parts. Sorry, to Nova Scotia Power. We've given them that information. So they take that information, when we say this is where we want to go, that's all in. They go out and they determine what the estimated cost is, clear the trees, replace poles if necessary. They come back, they give us the estimate, we agree, and they go do the work. They're doing work all over the county, but they may not be connecting, they may not be completing some of the work associated with connecting loops on the fiber. They'll get there, but we can't predict exactly when that'll happen because they're under different conditions than we are. They have to deal with line crews that may come in from other provinces that may have to self-isolate. All kinds of things associated with how we're dealing with this. So it's difficult to give us a timeline. I will say that we've connected customers right now. That's happened. It's the first test loop. So we've just chosen randomly, basically 10 people, 10 citizens, homes, and are providing them gigabit service. And we're getting their feedback that, look, they're just loving it, by the way. And ultimately, that POP location, a point of presence that gets the backhaul from Halifax is what is able to drive the internet service. So that's what we're testing. That's not the only POP that we're building. We're building 3 others, and then we'll send out from there. And so those POPs have to be finalized before you can do your connections. And so that's what we're working on is those POP locations, but then they have to be connected by fiber. So that's why the make-readies are so important. So you'll see connections start likely sometime, probably December, but it's not a great month. It's Christmas time. And
yes,
I think we'll see, people, being more interested in the holiday season as opposed to internet, we think. So, but full force, December and January for sure, I'm starting to connect people.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The other question, I remember what it was. The other question was about the sports hub. We were talking about $50,000. Now, what is the actual cost of the machine that we do need to keep the field?
I think it was $20,000. I think Deborah knows the exact price, and it's the machine that is designed to maintain the artificial turf.
Okay, so after the initial cost of $20,000, then it wouldn't be 50 every year. And I do remember at one time the sportsplex from Acadia, or the field from Acadia, them saying that their cost was about $10,000, and the fact they use their fields a lot. So maybe we wouldn't have so much deterioration in the field as Acadia has, as far as that goes. But to me, it's a place that we can have every age level using it. And because of that reasoning itself, I think it's important for us to, it's going to cost, yes, but it's also important for all of the people that use it, plus all the sports team that come in there, and they could be traveling from everywhere. Hopefully when this COVID starts getting under control properly. And I can't wait for that day, because I'll be the first one sitting on the sidelines watching to see what's going on, because it's going to be certainly an interesting day. They are practicing there now, and the numbers of the just track and field, I was talking to Ryan, and Ryan has said, they have more students that want to do it than they ever thought they would have. So that's a positive in itself, because that, there'll be something there for the students to do instead of doing something else, is what I'm going to say. and they'll have great guidance by the people that are coaching them. So in any case, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sheridan?
John, regarding the bundles, you mentioned the bundles. I was just curious if you had a conversation with Seaside in that regard, because would we be getting all the revenues for the bundle, the cable, the phone, and the internet, or would we be sharing the part of the revenue with Seaside on a bundle?
That's a good question. We haven't talked about the structure, but the services that they provide, we pay a set fee. And then anything else above that is, it comes back to the county. I think the same structure would be in play because their service we're paying for is to basically operate and maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the structure of a bundle would impact that, but it's a great question. I'm going to ask them.
Perfect. Also, they're going to be the ones doing the repairs in our area as well, the Seaside people, are they?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, John, Rumsey Lake apparently isn't going to get internet in there, or to my understanding by a constituent. And there's about 15 cottages back in there, 4 full time. And anyway, is that true or?
No one has said anything to me one way or about Rumsey Lake. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and take a look at that particular area and talk to Eagle about it. But if there's 15 customers and how far in is it on Rumsey Lake off the main road?
Probably a 3/4 or half mile.
If it's a half a mile and there's 15 customers, I can't see why we wouldn't go there.
Okay. It'd be less than half.
But I'll double check. Yeah. We're going to get a lot of areas. We'll get not a lot, but we're going to get some areas where we basically are planning to provide it up to 250 meters off the main road. However, we know that there's people that could be 500 or a kilometer off road. And have to look at those independently when we get there. And in some cases, that does create extra costs. And they may not get it right away. We may have to seek other funding to get it to them. And if we do have enough in the budget to do it, we'll do it. But we basically are using the benchmark at 250.
Yeah, well, just 4 miles down the road, there's Sand Lake, which is getting the internet, and there's about 7 homes in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And look, if we have some difficulty with any area, we'll be looking at solutions.
Thank you.
Councillor McNeil?
Yeah, my question is simple, but it's to do with the advanced polls. Are those being recorded the same as when, for instance, I voted Sunday? Are the advanced polls being recorded at the same time?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, okay, people.
Count.
Yeah, the count. Yeah, sorry.
The count at the advanced poll is in the current updated count. Yes, it's a real-time count that's included. Yeah.
Okay. And John, I'm going to give you a call.
Yeah.
John, I'm going to give you a call after the meeting's over about something else. So.
Okay.
Right. No further questions. We've had the motion and it's seconded to receive the report. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. And our last item of business is an in-camera item under the MGA section 22.2E contract negotiations. Could I request a motion to go in camera?
No, we had some additions.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We did have some additions. Let's start off in that case with the 2021 tax sale first.
So I'll start with the suggested motion that was put forward by staff.
Okay.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I move to recommend that municipal council proceed with the 2020-2021 tax sale by calling tenders rather than by public auction.
All right. Can we have someone to make that motion?
I would make that
Councillor
motion.
Hemming, seconded by Councillor Prout. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Fowler?
Well, I have a little concern about tax sale this year. A lot of people have had a hard time over the last year, and I don't think we should be putting the tax sale onto them at this time or this year.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Warden?
If we can't have a tax sale, well, by tender, maybe we should think about postponing it until the following year when we can have it like we normally do. Has there been any other information how other municipalities are going to have theirs this year, or?
If I may.
John?
Other municipalities are struggling as well. Most are proceeding with their tax sales. And it's more about whether or not it's being done in a public forum, or they're asking if other people are doing certain methods. We haven't made a decision, but I think the tender process is the best way to deal with not being able to bring that many people into one room and basically bid on items. The other thing too is that each year, getting ready for tax sales, certain work has to be done on the file itself, and that gets tacked on as an expense. So if we don't go to tax sale, then it actually increases the cost of that property, and or increase the lien that's on that property, I guess is a better way to say it. And so what we've done is that our bylaw says after 2 years we have to put it on sale. So we're not going to do the 2-year ones. We're going to do the 3-year ones, is my understanding. But the 3 years is a mandatory of the Municipal Government Act, and we don't have any authority to divert it unless we get instructions to do so under a state of emergency. There's been no instructions in that regard, so we're obligated to follow the act.
Well, it's just, my thought is if you put them all out to tender, I mean, an auction is an auction. Sometimes we get more, sometimes we don't sell properties, but if you put them out to tender, well, how does that option work? Like if we're gonna have a tax sale, I believe that we should proceed as we normally do and limit the people that can go. Or have them on Zoom.
John, would a Zoom auction be something to be even feasible?
I don't know. I'll check. I know auctions that they've had phone auctions, and you know, everybody's participating on the call, and they're trying. The big thing is to be respectful to one another, not all talk about, and to really be able to track and understand how you track. I don't know if anybody's done an auction with Zoom yet. Just looking at our page here, we have 20 spots. And you may not even notice someone moving so I'm not sure how it would be done. You may have to put a card, or there may have to be, use your chat button to say what you're bidding. And then how do you guarantee that's person to follow? There'd be a little bit of difference involved, but it's possible. I'll look into it.
Deputy Warden?
Well, I know there's auction sites that auction off, and they have to register. And then they just, like if you had the PID number and that come up on the screen, and the little thing that we usually put out in the paper, like the description, comes up on the screen, and they have a bid button down below. And you can either do it in increments of $100 to $500, or they can have a button that they'll press in a total amount that they will pay, and then it goes from there. And I mean, I've seen them on the computer. Well, we use them every week.
Yeah, and look, you just have to look at eBay when somebody's bidding. There's a timeline, and the last bid gets
right.
Gets the item. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it. We've only from the sense we didn't know if it would work on Zoom. We knew that we couldn't bring that many people in. So it was suggested from a legal perspective, we could do it by 10. But I'm happy to look at where we're going. The only thing is, whatever format we use, council has to approve.
Right.
It's not something that we can make a decision on ourselves. It has to come to council so we understand how
So would council like staff to consider whether or not it's possible to hold the auction in some sort of an online format?
Yes.
Councillor Gunn?
Thank you. So my kind of questions here that runs into a whole bunch of things. When it's an auction, you know, you got to pay at the end of the auction. So if that piece of property, we've got, you know, I bought land and the thing you get in trouble for it and all kinds of things, you know, I don't back away from nothing. But the long and the short of it is, if I was to go to a land auction or a tax sale at Annapolis County, at the end of it, I wouldn't be able to leave the building unless I paid for that piece of property. And there was no fooling around. I mean, I can't say, oh, well, I'm going to the bank to get the money. You ain't leaving the building. Right? That's the way it's been for years. So one more time, we're going to have to come to some sort of a new norm. And I hate that term, and I hate this damn new norm I got. I hate meeting systems, I can tell you. And to do this online is going to be a real hard issue. Online, auctioned in, whatever. I don't understand how it'll work. I don't understand how it could even be fair, you know, to guarantee, because somebody say, I can get on there, drive the price of that property up, skyrocket it. And then you get off and say, I got a good one on them. So I'm not buying that. You know, there's a lot here to consider how it's going to be paid for. So if it's really not going to be an auction and you pay for it at the end, somehow or other, we got to take those people that are only a couple of years behind and forget about them. Put it off a year. Go back to the government and say, listen, you guys are carrying this state of emergency on, and we can't hold things normal. And where you're going to have to allow us to put it off because it's not fair anymore. Thank you.
My understanding from what John said was that for this year, we would be considering 3-year properties only. And of course, those are the properties where we have a legal obligation under the MGA at that point. We can't let it go further than that. So the mechanism we can debate, but the legal requirement is we have to try to recoup money for our taxpayers through a tax sale for those properties that haven't had them paid within 3 years. So I don't think we can escape that obligation.
We can't go back to the government on that, the provincial government, and say, hey, Bub, you know, you're creating this problem. This is our solution to it so it can be done fairly. You know, we have all kinds of time to make letters for people to send looking for support for this and that. I think it's worth a letter to the province saying that, you know, we've got to consider this, to allowing us to put it aside for a year, the 3rd-year properties. There can't be that many of them.
Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, we don't even have a local paper to give notice of tax sales.
Yeah, look, it's not a perfect system right now. If we put this into perspective, COVID first impacted us mid to late March, and then it brings us to where we are today. Most people, if they have had difficulty and haven't been able to pay their property taxes, it won't show up yet, and they'll be if they aren't able to pay, they'll be shown as delinquent for 1 year. What we have right now in 3 years, the delinquency on those started 3 years ago, and COVID could have an effect on them right now, but there's a likelihood where they've missed 3 years that it's not COVID that's led to the potential tax sale. And plus the obligations that we have in order to recover the taxes from that property written in the MGA has to occur no further than 3 years. Our bylaw was 2, and we can relax on that. We'd have to have council to give us a resolution to do so, and also to tender this out. If you would give us that resolution, we can start planning. If we feel that it could be done on a platform like this, here's the thing about a platform like this. You have to have an auctioneer that completely knows how to run this.
Mhm.
And you have to have people that know.
Auction site.
So there'll be a bit of education involved. If it's a phone, it's simple if we can set it up. And if we're able to bring them into a larger room, even better. But there's not, I don't believe there's a lot in tax sale, but I'll double check. It was around 20. We'd like to have none, but it's around 20. And I don't think all of them were 3 years. Some were 2.
Okay. Carolyn.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd be able to use Zoom. I think you would have to purchase an auction platform.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So, John, you'd like a resolution in that case of council to waive the requirement of our bylaw for the purpose of this so that we can address only three-year properties. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, just saying, look, we're going to, tax sales will be for properties that have been in the arrear for 3 years. And we're developed with blessings from council, we would develop a tender process. And, but if in the meantime, we'll look at other platforms to see if we can do in cost. Our tax sales usually don't occur till time, but we just want to be able to and make sure we get it.
Councillor LeBlanc?
He actually, John has answered my question. In total, there was approximately 20, but we're only looking at the 3-year ones. So it could be like 10 or so, or 5 or something.
I'm thinking around, look, I rather with Shelley, she has her finger on the pulse there. And
Holly has her hand.
Hi, Holly.
Hi. Yes, there are 23 properties that are 3 years and over.
23 properties.
23, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Is again, as Councillor Gunn mentioned, is these people going to pay because we do not accept Visa? I'm assuming these auction sites accept Visa, PayPal, or some sort of thing like that. We don't accept Visa, and the reason we don't accept Visa is because there's a cost of like 1.5% that the municipality would have to assume on accepting Visa.
Okay.
How these people would pay. Yes, generally you're not really allowed to leave the building unless at least the arrears and taxes and interest and the cost of sale are paid. They can, the surplus amount, they can come in 3 days to come into the building to pay the remainder. But
so could we do it
have to be paid that day?
Yeah, could we do it like drive-in type stuff at an outside building with vehicles outside and a speaker?
I'm not sure. Bruce Gillis is our auctioneer, and I guess it's whatever he feels comfortable doing, and our legal counsel, so he would have to.
that's the winter time too, in February. So
Yeah, February.
we would have to take a look at it. It's a bit awkward this year, folks.
Yeah, it is.
Say it's not, and we're just trying to meet the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and it's not going to be perfect.
Councillor Sheridan?
In regards to Michael Gunn's inquiry in regards to sending off a message to the minister to find out how we're supposed to do this, because ultimately it's up to them, is it not, like to change the MGA, or how does?
Yeah, they won't legislatively change the MGA, but if they call a state of emergency, they can limit certain aspects of what they do, or limit freedoms of the vote. For example, if we travel outside of the bubble and we came back, we'd have to isolate for 14 days. That's limiting our freedoms, but it's as a result of a state of emergency. So if they, under the state of an emergency, could say, we're going to handle it this way, they wouldn't have to change legislation, but they'd give us permission to do it.
Okay, so that's something we could look into possibly then?
Yeah, sure. And I think other municipalities have, but we could certainly write to see if we could have how we could proceed with that. I will also add that this year, unlike other years, we've been very flexible in setting up payment arrangements. So the people that have called in, and even arrangements that they can afford to keep in their homes. We've been doing.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Gunn?
Thank you. We could also possibly, in what these taxes call us, could we add in what it costs to hire a large venue so that people can come in, socially distance, and know what's going on? Our staff, there's no reason they can't be socially if we have a large venue. That's the cost of doing business. Can't that be added on to what it costs to, auction these things off? There's costs for Bruce and all the rest of it. Can't that just be added in?
I think the gathering limits restrict that right now. I think we can't have over 50. It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's we would just limit it at 50. I mean, people would work that out.
You could have to register, potentially.
Yeah. And I don't think if we have people that want to bid, I don't think you can limit the number of people. That's the.
Yeah. Well, they could do it by phone, so one person in there too, right?
Yeah.
Limit the amount of people, and a lot of people are only going after one particular property.
Councillor LeBlanc?
And that's where I was going with all of this. You guys are going there, but the other option could be that we do, instead of one big auction, we split them up in 3 for, say, like 7 properties or 10 properties or half, 12, whatever. Do those, and then the next day we'll say we'll do these over here. So that could possibly we could have just, if they register, up to 50 people, and then we could see if is it more than 50 people that are interested in these properties, or more than 50 over there. And if that's the case, we could possibly split it again to 3 days in consecutive. That's just an option that I was thinking to go do that. Thank you.
Councillor Hammond?
When I was with Kiwanis, to give you an example, we would have a live auction and we would have, I think, 10 phones that anybody, and we would televise it, and anybody that was, and this would be live, so if anybody saw the item that was televised, they could call in, and they were given a call-in number, and they had to pre-register as well before they could call in. That was all allowed before the auction. And if they called in on that phone, that card number was a specific person, and they would bid, and they could bid against somebody that was there. There's ways to do it, but we're not in that business of doing auctions, typically in the format that we do it in. So we're going to have to look at other ways.
So do we have a specific time frame that I really want to ask as well? Like, do we have, like, you have up February 29th or 28th to do it, get it all done? Or is it another day?
Yeah, no, it's always been February. And the idea is you're drawing near to the fiscal year end.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Hammond?
Interesting discussion. I love this. It continually points out to me that as a government entity, there are political and legal implications that don't apply to other sorts of institutions. So it's not just a matter of you need an auction, let's do an auction. There's a variety of implications there. But the other thing I just want to caution, it hit me strong, is the implication that the province caused this problem. And because of that, they need to pay for this. The downside of that is if the province or any level of government doesn't take a particular action, and in this one, if all of a sudden there's an outbreak of COVID because the province didn't take a particular stand, you've got to continually look at both sides of that. So if there is correspondence with the province, I would caution us taking a stance at all that suggests that the province caused this problem. That's all. Just a language.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, the province frankly has been doing a fairly has been doing actually a great job of looking after and tracing and keeping the public informed about what's going on. And we know what the limitations are as it relates to the state of an emergency. And we're working within those boundaries. And we're going to try to get this auction out, tendered perhaps. If before February, we could have a live auction. But right now, in order for us to proceed with the format, the only one that we've really looked right now is a tendering process. That's
because if I could follow up, I have to say that that Nova Scotia has done beyond a doubt the best job of managing COVID of any place in Canada.
Yeah, no question.
Deputy
And
Warden.
I'd like to say even our operations here, the work that Dawn has done, setting up people sign in and sign out, we can actually trace. We know when people have been in and they've been very cooperative. And the idea is that if somebody does get it, we know who was in the building at the same time. We know it's very helpful information so that we can manage and defend ourselves from COVID.
Deputy Warden.
Well, I kind of think the idea that Diane had is not a bad idea if you have to split it up into a 2 or 3 day process and you put those, because not everybody goes in and bids on the same piece of property. So if you had a process that you had so many on one day and continued the next day, and we're allowed 50 people to come in and they had to register. I mean, to me, we don't have a fire hall full of people that come to our auctions. And I could see dividing it up and stretching it out and giving them the opportunity to be able to bid on something that they wanted.
We have a occupancy limit, I think, in the council chamber of 67, if my memory serves me correctly. And
well, we always had it at a fire hall.
No, we haven't. We had it last year at a fire hall.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the full numbers of it, but the reason why we had it at the full fire hall is because we had more than 67 people. So
right.
if we split it up and we have it at the fire hall, for example, then our costs go up to put the tax sale on. That's something we could entertain.
Mm-hmm.
What you can't predict is you can't predict anyone's interest in any one particular piece of
right.
property. You may have 60 people interested in one property. And that's sort of the problem that we have. So that particular year, when we had people in the hallway, we allowed them in the hallway in order to listen and participate in the auction. But frankly, we were booked solid. Basically, you couldn't move in that hallway too well, and we would never be able to do that during these circumstances of COVID. And we can't have over 50, I think, in any one gathering. So that's the problem, and you can't predict either. These are all good suggestions. And poor Shelley, she's been stressed out over this, really trying to figure out what's the best way to proceed. We're just trying to help her get so that she can get organized and get all the work done that's necessary, but in the format that the public tendering process, the fairness of a bid is employed. And Bruce's suggestion is the tenders, the fairest and most effective way and easiest to manage process. People will know what values on the tax, what taxes are owed on the property, and they can put their bid in associated with that. That's
it does occur to me that one way around the difficulty that you just described, John, of not knowing how many people will show for each individual property, is you could require pre-registration by property. You could list the properties and have people register who are interested. And in fact, if it was done that way and you know how many people are interested in which properties, you could even know how to group them in order to ensure that you won't have more than 50 people present for any one of the sessions that you're having. But it is more cumbersome and it is more expensive.
Administratively heavy too, because again, you can't predict what people may put their name down, whether they want the property or not, just in case they can get it at a low cost.
Deal. Yeah.
Right? It's very hard to predict.
So Carolyn, could you reread the motion that we currently have moved and seconded so we know exactly what's on the floor? Because what this would lead us towards the tendering process. My sense is that a number of people prefer something that more closely approximates our regular auction process. But if this is the least expensive and the fairest that could be managed without a heavy administrative burden, we should probably at least consider it. Could you read it for us once more, Carolyn?
Well, can I just make a comment first as well?
Please.
You could split the tax sale into 3 properties a day, you will have that many people for every day. They don't come for just one property. They come for all of it every time. So,
Yes.
the motion is, was moved by Councillor Hemming, seconded by Councillor Prout, that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I move to recommend that municipal council proceed with the 2021 tax sale by calling tenders rather than by public auction.
Okay, so that's simple and clear enough. Perhaps what we can do is vote on this. If this doesn't pass, then council can develop an alternate motion for direction for something that staff can consider. Deputy
Veronica
Warden.
has a question.
So could we amend that motion by adding to look into a multi-day process
Well,
or something to that effect?
We'd have to withdraw this one. This motion calls for something quite specific. It says we will do it by tender this year. So if that's not what we want to do, which is partly why I'd suggest, why don't we should just put it to the question and see whether or not it moves. And if not, then we can give alternate direction to staff. All right, so let's put it to the question in that case. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, so the motion is defeated. All right. Does someone have a suggestion of how they'd like to phrase a motion for direction for our staff? My guess is that what you'd like to do is it'd be a motion to refer the issue of the tax sale to staff to develop a process that respects social distancing requirements, however, closely approximating our traditional auction procedure. Councillor Gunn, is that what you're seconding, Councillor? Or of course, would you like to make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Make the motion seconded by the Deputy Warden. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I didn't hear a mover or a seconder because I'm trying to capture what the motion is.
My apologies. It was moved by
To develop a process respecting social distance requirements, closely recognizing the current.
closely approximating our current procedure.
And who were the mover and seconder, please?
Moved by Councillor Gunn, seconded by the Deputy Warden.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion? Councillor Hemming.
I'm not going to support the motion just because of the vagueness of it, closely approximate. And I just think it puts an additional burden on the staff at a time when we don't need it. The previous motion, in my estimation, got the job done. Not perfect, but it's not administrative heavy. And so I'm not going to support this motion.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Councillor Sheridan.
Regarding the advice of the minister, should we wait to hear back from what they have to say or add this as into the motion?
Look, everybody's making some really great comments here. Wendy, I think really it does go back to the order, the limited people that we can have in an open space, and I don't know if that can be guaranteed. So we going down a road that we may end up not being able to do it publicly. Okay. And so right now, the only way we know that we can do it fairly is through a tendering process. So if we had more information that told us we could do it better or in a different way leading up to that time period, look, we'd be open to it because that's the format we're used to, an auction at the county office. So that could easily be done. But right now, we can't guarantee the numbers. And as I just said, the previous one before we had the one down in the fire hall, there were maybe 100 people. So it's hard to predict the numbers.
Okay. So is this something we should table until we get more information from?
Maybe you could.
Motion's on the floor.
You could, there's an existing motion on the floor raised by Mr. Gunn. And if that passes, then that's the route we're going to take. I will be upfront with you. We're going to have difficulty meeting that requirement because we won't know the numbers.
Okay.
One day might work, the next day may not.
No, I see where you're coming from. I understand, because like you say, more people go for just more than one piece of property.
Yeah. And they may make up their mind that morning.
Mhm.
That's right.
Right. It's a difficult decision.
It is.
Councillor Fowler?
This motion to table overrides any motion to the floor.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay. There's nothing further, then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor McNeil, how are you voting?
Nay.
Okay, counting nays, nay.
Nay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the motion is defeated. So as it stands right now, in that case, we don't have a procedure that we have agreed upon, and we haven't given direction as to what to look to do. So the third, I'm just trying to think what options remain on the table. Councillor Hemming.
The option I would put forward is return where we first were. Provided that there's no new information that would require us to do it in any better way, something like that.
We'll proceed. Good idea, I think, Councillor Hemming. We'll proceed with the tendering process, but we'll monitor the opportunity to have a open public process.
I think that's right, because that could happen in 2 days, that there is something new information that changes this. But I think we need to have something, some way forward, unless there's enough new significant information to cause us to change our minds.
Councillor LeBlanc.
So if we proceed with this tendering process, would we proceed with putting all of the properties at one time, or would we go half of the properties and because we're doing tendering, we could do, it wouldn't have to be all of the properties at once. It could be a trial run to see with 5 properties or whatever.
I think the intention, we have a legal obligation for all those properties that are at the 3-year point. We have an obligation to do something with those properties this year.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if we could have a trial run with 5 at a time, would that work as well? That's just an option. That was just a comment.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. I'm not sure what we're talking about. We have no motion on the floor. One of my colleagues indicated we should return to the first motion. And then somebody said, well, we will proceed with this, and if that doesn't work, we'll do. I'm not sure what we're talking about. We have no motion on the floor.
You're right. You're correct, Councillor.
No direction.
There isn't a motion currently on the floor. And I think that what was happening was Councillor Hemming suggested reverting to the original motion, and then our CAO suggested that what you could do is implement the tendering process with the understanding that staff will closely monitor the situation to see if it might become possible at any point to actually conduct an in-person auction. And if that did become a possibility, we would revert to that process. So, but the motion itself hasn't actually been structured or made. Councillor Gunn. Oh no, Councillor Sheridan first, then Councillor Gunn.
In regards to that, like Councillor Fowler pointed out, we have no local paper to advertise. And if you're doing it in separate, if we end up doing it separate, how do we advertise? And we have a lot of unknown questions that aren't answered, like a lot of questions that aren't answered, like in regards to advertising and how do they pre-register and all that. To get the word out there, I don't understand how we're going to do it.
Here goes the point of order.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison.
We are in danger of going on for the next hour. We don't have a motion. You suggested a wording. I would be willing to move something akin to that, but we need a basis for discussion.
Councillor Morrison is correct. Sorry, Councillor Gunn. The reason I went with Councillor Morrison is a point of order always supersedes the next speaker. But go ahead, Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. I move the table until the next meeting so we get the time to think about this.
Is that a second, Deputy Warden? So it's been moved to table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And 1, 2, 3. Could you keep your hands up, folks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councillor McNeil, how are you voting?
Yay.
6. And nays? 1, 2, 3, 4.
And don't cheat there, Emily.
Okay, Grandma. The motion's defeated. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Oh no, the motion's carried. I'm sorry. The motion's carried. All right. So it's been tabled to the next meeting. So let's, in that case, go on to.
Sorry, I don't know if it was tabled because
Yes.
Councillor, if I'm not mistaken, Bert McGill voted nay.
Yay. Didn't he?
Yes.
No, I said yay.
He said
You
yay.
said yay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All
Yes.
right.
Okay. That's how I heard. Okay. So let's go on in that case to the item of Zuri. Councillor Morris.
When you're tabling to the next meeting in committee of the whole, you're tabling to committee of the whole.
Well,
Motion's been made.
tabling, unfortunately, you have to make a motion at the meeting that you want to lift it. And if you defer it with a specific time, you can deal with it then. But council voted on a tabling motion.
It's tabled, so you can't untable a committee of the whole motion. You cannot untable it at council.
Yeah.
You can untable it at a committee of the whole because that's where it was tabled.
That's correct.
Motion's been made.
All right. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make sure everyone knows that in the building that started out as a tire recycling plant and went to a call center on top of Burns Hill Road is now a cannabis production and distribution center. And there's been an announcement by the general manager of Zuri that he's going to create 150 jobs or so within the next couple of years. He's going to build 25 to 30 houses for staff and members of the local community, and has indicated to me quite strongly that one of the reasons that company is here is because of the educational, recreational, and cultural attractions of the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morrison. November Committee of the Whole, Councillor Gunn.
Thank you. So November Committee of the Whole is right around the corner. And I'd like to make a motion that Annapolis County direct the CAO of Annapolis County to arrange a venue large enough to hold Committee of the Whole safely in accordance with the Nova Scotia government rules on people meeting. I would make that motion. Thank you.
Is that to hold an in-person meeting? Sorry, to hold an in-person, to hold it in.
Hold an in-person meeting for.
Yes,
committee.
an in-person to direct the county council direct the CAO of Annapolis County to arrange a venue large enough to hold, yes, if you want to put in-person in there, in-person November Committee of the Whole safely in accordance to the Nova Scotia government rules.
So that was moved by Councillor Gunn and seconded by the Deputy Warden. Discussion on the motion.
I'm sorry, who was the seconder? I was trying to capture the motion.
The Deputy Warden was the seconder.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion on the motion, folks? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so the motion, and we'll call for the nays as well. Nay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor McNeil, how are you voting?
I'm voting yay.
Yay, because the motion's carried. Thanks very much. All right, so that brings us to the end of our additional items. We have one in-camera item to be dealt with under the MGA section 22.2E contract negotiation. Can I request a motion to go in camera under that section, please?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor McNeil, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you back to the open portion of our committee of the whole meeting. I believe we have a couple of items from in camera to be added to our agenda. Deputy Warden.
D&D reimbursement agreement and Gordon.
It's moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Thank you very much. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. So the first item, the D&D agreement, is to do with the property that's owned by the Department of National Defense, where we have one of our wells. Carolyn, could you read the suggested motion, please?
Yes, to authorize the warden and clerk to sign the reimbursement agreement with the Department of National Defense to permit the use and occupancy of D&D lands for Municipality of Annapolis County source water operations, Granville Ferry, and that the municipality meet the financial commitments for costs incurred by D&D to enter into this lease agreement.
Could I have a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Gunn, seconded by
McNeil.
Councillor McNeil. Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. The next item from in camera is an update on Gordonston. We're delighted, of course, that the project is continuing and accelerating as it does so. We received some good news from the developer over the course of this week that the architects that have been engaged to work on the project have developed the first renderings of the school, the administrative building, and the first two academic buildings. This would be what you would see if you came up through the orchard. And we're putting it on screen right now. So this should be in the recording. So if you're a member of the public and you're looking at this, you'll have a chance to see it. And so that's the administrative building in the center, flanked by two academic buildings. And if you'll note, the administrative building quite deliberately it is designed with an homage to Fort Anne in Annapolis Royals. They really wanted to incorporate one of the features of one of the most famous historical buildings in our county in the core design of the Gordonston, Nova Scotia campus. And I think it looks rather lovely. So it's exciting to see the first image of this. Thank you for that, Carolyn. And in addition, we've received word from the developer as well that he has engaged a team to manage the process of engaging and of selecting and engaging a principal for Gordonston. So this is a process that's a fairly significant, detailed process, and the principal, of course, their responsibilities are outlined. And among those responsibilities is community outreach. So they'll be on site roughly a year before students first arrive at the Gordonston School, and we'll be looking to engage the community. And that'll be a very exciting thing as well. So we wanted to relay that information to the public. I'm not sure if any other councillor would like to say a word about this. And if not, thank you all very much for your work this morning. I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.